Beneath the weight of 40,000 years, the world feels different. No cities. No metal. No written language. Only wind, hunger, and the slow crawl of stars above an Earth still locked in glacial tension. Imagine standing in that world, not as an observer from the present, but as someone who belongs to it, whose survival is tied to every decision, every mistake, every breath of cold air. Before you is a horizon of rolling ice and tundra. Behind you, the darkness of a cave that still carries the warmth of last night's fire. And in your hand rests something the future will forget, a carved branch, polished smooth by touch, attached to a long, flexible dart. You do not know mathematics. You do not know the word physics. But you know what this tool will do. You know what it means to feel power travel through wood and bone and flesh. You know the perfect moment when strength flows beyond what your arm alone could deliver. With this thing, you are no longer only human. You are distance. You are reach. You are danger. For most of our shared history, human beings were prey. The world was full of giants, not metaphors, but literal mountains of flesh and bone that would tear a person apart without effort. A woolly rhinoceros could shatter a ribcage like ice, the short-faced bear could sprint faster than any Olympic athlete alive today, mammoths could crush a hunter and not even notice the life extinguished beneath their feet. Even wolves were larger than, hungrier, better adapted to the brutal cold. Humanity was small, fragile, and slow. We did not dominate because of muscle. We survived because of ideas, because imagination burned hotter than fire. That imagination gave birth to something the modern world has nearly erased from memory. Long before the bowstring hummed its first note, long before metal arrowheads glittered in battle, there was this simple lever, an extension of the arm, a multiplier of force, a miracle in wood. The Atlatl. The name itself feels strange on the tongue, borrowed from Nahuatl, thousands of years after the first versions existed. Early humans who held the tool had no word for it, because language itself was still young. Yet the silence made it no less revolutionary. The Atlatl was not merely a device created to throw a spear farther. It was humanity's first true ranged weapon. Our first chance to kill something extremely dangerous without standing close to its teeth. Before this tool, hunting large animals was an act of terrifying intimacy. To strike a beast, you had to be near its skin, close enough to feel its breath and hear the rumble of its chest, close enough to die. A thrown spear helped only a little. The human arm has limits. Strength fades. Accuracy collapses. Distance becomes useless. The Atlatl rewrote those limits entirely. It turned the human body into something it had never been, deadly from afar. Close your eyes and picture it. A valley covered in frost, bitter wind scraping across exposed skin. A herd of massive herbivores mills below the ridge, steam rising from their noses in rhythmic clouds. They are the size of trucks, dangerous and unpredictable. You have chased them for days, reading tracks in snow, tasting the air for hints of movement. If this hunt fails, there may not be enough food to last the winter. You cannot afford to miss. You cannot afford to get too close. The tool in your hand offers a new kind of hope. Standing on a slope of loose stone, you plant your feet, breathe deeply, and raise the Atlatl. One motion begins the chain, a smooth draw back, the dart flexing under tension like a living branch. At the moment of release you feel an explosion of precision. It leaves your hand with a speed no unassisted arm could ever produce. The dart arcs across the frozen air, whistling like an arrow centuries before arrows exist. When it lands, the sound echoes across the valley, meat struck, bone pierced. An animal larger than a truck shudders, roars, and falls to its knees. You have killed something 20 times your size without stepping close enough to be crushed. That moment, quiet, invisible, lost to time, is one of the most important turning points in human history. Yet almost no one knows it happened. The Atlatl lies buried not only in soil, but beneath cultural amnesia. Stranger still, this forgotten revolution changed everything: how we hunted, how we thought, how we lived, how we imagined power. It reshaped the human mind centuries before agriculture. It carved new neural pathways inside the shoulder long before writing carved meaning into clay. It turned fear into strategy. It made the impossible possible. Think about the difference this created. Without the Atlatl, humans needed numbers to fight large prey. Whole groups had to swarm dangerous animals. Losses were common. Bones found in caves tell stories of shattered ribs, skull trauma, puncture wounds, marks left behind by angry beasts defending themselves. But with the Atlatl, a single skilled hunter could bring down a creature that once required an entire community. One throw carried the energy of 3, 4, 5 normal throws. It changed the math of survival. Suddenly, risk no longer sat directly in front of your eyes. Prey died before it saw you. A weapon like that doesn't just protect bodies, it changes minds. It tells people, for the first time, that distance can be a shield. That planning can replace brute courage. That intelligence can overcome muscle. That the world can be shaped rather than endured. Most people today imagine ancient humans as primitive. We picture them as bodies wrapped in furs, grunting in ignorance. Yet anyone who has ever held an Atlatl knows that such a belief is deeply unfair. To create a functioning spear thrower requires geometry, leverage awareness, material science, accuracy testing, and countless cycles of refined observation. None of those skills were written in books. They lived inside hands. They lived inside repetition. They lived inside memory passed from one generation to the next. Paleolithic engineers carved weights into the weapon, adjusting balance so it would stabilize in flight, a concept modern physics schools teach using equations. They discovered that darts needed flexibility rather than stiffness, that oscillation along the shaft increased power, that certain woods bent better than others, that certain angles produced cleaner release. They learned these lessons not through machines or laboratories, but through thousands of hunts across thousands of winters. The first Atlatl hunters must have felt like gods. Imagine humans who had always feared the bison suddenly discovering that they could drop one from 50 meters away. Imagine what this weapon did to stories, how elders described it around the fire, how the young stared into the flames imagining the next day's hunt, how myth and technology blended together into meaning. And beneath all that wonder existed something quieter, more personal: pride. The Atlatl made individuals powerful. The person who mastered it earned respect, food, partners, legacy. Through a carved stick and a long dart, ordinary people could become legends. Yet today, we barely acknowledge the tool. The bow overshadows it, the spear replaces it in textbooks, the concept of fire steals its ancient spotlight. But if one object deserves to stand beside the wheel and the blade in the story of human evolution, it is the Atlatl. It was the first weapon that allowed us to imagine war from a safe distance, the first device that turned danger into mathematics, the first time human beings extended their nervous system beyond their skin. That might sound poetic, but it is also literal. When a hunter used an Atlatl, their body and the weapon acted as one organism. Muscle memory fused with carved leverage. Neurons formed patterns unique to the motion. Every throw rewrote the architecture of the human shoulder and spine. Mutations that favored high rotation joints, stable scapulas, and elastic tendons gained new advantage. The body of Homo sapiens changed because of this invention. Technology shaped biology. So the weapon wasn't simply a tool, it was a crossroads. Atlatl hunting made large kills possible, which increased calorie intake. More calories fueled brain growth. Larger brains fueled creativity, social connection, and cultural memory. That cycle shaped who we are. In a sense, every story told today, every scientific breakthrough, every poem, every song, every piece of human thought is built on the survival made possible by innovations like this. Without the Atlatl, the human population might have remained small, scattered, vulnerable. With it, the odds shifted. The Ice Age became conquerable. The world, for the first time, felt reachable. What makes this more haunting is how quietly it all happened. There were no records, no celebrations, no historians to capture the moment the first Atlatl dart struck its target. The world simply changed. And when movements like this fade beneath time, they gather mystery. Somewhere, beneath layers of sediment, lie the broken remains of early spear throwers, fragments of antler, carved grooves that once held darts, polished handles worn smooth by palms. They are silent now, but they speak. They whisper that our ancestors were not brutes stumbling toward civilization, but engineers, thinkers, dreamers. Humanity remembers the steam engine, the microchip, the printing press. We teach children about the first flight, the first wheel, the first telephone. But the first ranged weapon, our earliest attempt to project force through space with precision and intent, is nearly forgotten outside archaeology circles. The weapon that allowed small bands of humans to walk toward the future with confidence has become a footnote. That amnesia is strange. It reveals a truth about how we treat history. We remember victories built on metal, armies, kings, and empire, but we forget quiet revolutions powered by hunger, fear, and creativity. The Atlatl was born not to conquer other people, but to conquer despair. It helped us eat, it kept us warm, it made children grow into adults. And yet, even as the modern world ignores it, the earth still holds echoes. There are places where the air feels exactly as it did then, open, cold, and wide. There are people today who recreate the weapon, discovering the same thrill our ancestors felt. When they throw, they describe a sensation not of releasing a dart but of releasing time. The motion is ancient. The feeling familiar. It is as though the past remembers them. In that moment, modern history collapses, and the truth stands naked. This simple carved lever was not just a tool, but the first major technological leap that separated humans from every other creature on the planet. It is easy to underestimate objects so small and silent. It is easy to see wood and string and call it primitive. But if you look closer, if you hold the Atlatl up to the light of human evolution, a new shape appears. A spark of genius ignites. You realize that this forgotten device marks the moment when humanity discovered the strength of distance. It marks the beginning of strategy, foresight, cooperation, risk management, and the psychological thrill of knowing you can alter reality with a gesture. That discovery would ripple outward, through spears, arrows, guns, missiles, satellites. Every extension of human reach begins here. In the shadow of glaciers, under a sky untouched by electricity, surrounded by predators stronger than us, there was a moment when someone lifted a new idea in their hands. They tested it, shaped it, trusted it. They looked at a beast built to destroy them, and for the first time, the distance between body and target felt like safety, not defeat. Civilization was not born in cities. It was born in that widening distance, between hunter and prey, between fear and control, between weakness and imagination. The Atlatl was humanity's first step across that gap, and everything that followed, language, culture, storytelling, technology, walked through the door it opened. That is where our story begins. Long before the bow became the symbol of precision and hunting skill, long before arrows whistled across forests and plains, humans relied on their arms alone, their eyes, and the occasional reach of a spear. It is easy to imagine our ancestors as helpless, throwing stones or spears with little hope of hitting something alive, but the truth is far more fascinating. The story of human ingenuity begins here, in that liminal space between the limitations of the body and the sudden, electrifying discovery of extended reach. The Atlatl sits at the heart of this story, a forgotten bridge between raw human strength and the ability to manipulate the environment at a distance. Yet it is more than a tool, it represents a paradigm shift in how humans perceived risk, effort, and the natural world. Before the Atlatl, every hunt was a gamble with mortality. The sheer size and ferocity of Ice Age megafauna meant that getting too close was often fatal. A misjudged step, a startled prey, a sudden lunge, all could end a life. Humans developed strategies of numbers, cooperation, and ambush, but these came at immense cost. Entire hunting parties could be lost in the pursuit of a single mammoth or bison. Death was always an arm's length away. It was a world in which the stakes were immediate, visceral, and terrifying. And yet, humans were not helpless. Necessity sharpened the mind. Survival demanded more than brute strength, it demanded ingenuity. The bow, so often romanticized in films and stories, is a relatively recent innovation in the human timeline, perhaps only emerging fully within the last 10,000 years. In contrast, the Atlatl appeared tens of thousands of years earlier, a quiet revolution that is almost impossible for the modern imagination to grasp fully. It was not an ornate device. At first, it was a simple extension of the arm, a lever designed to maximize the kinetic energy that a human could impart to a dart. But within this simplicity lay genius. It allowed humans to throw a projectile with a velocity and accuracy far beyond what muscle alone could produce. With it, humans could keep their distance, take calculated risks, and approach hunting as a strategic act rather than a desperate scramble. The Atlatl transformed hunting from an intimate confrontation with death into a deliberate, almost clinical process. To understand the significance of this tool, one must understand the human arm. The biomechanics of throwing are deceptively limited. Even the strongest person cannot project a spear with deadly force across great distances repeatedly without fatigue. Accuracy diminishes, power wanes, and the margin for error remains perilously thin. The Atlatl solved this problem elegantly. By effectively lengthening the arm, it multiplied leverage. A short, flexible dart could be hurled with astonishing speed, covering distances that once required full-bodied running attacks. The hunter, once bound by the limits of sinew and bone, was suddenly extended into space, capable of exerting influence across tens of meters. This was not merely mechanical advantage, it was psychological liberation. Distance became safety. Power became attainable without risking life and limb on every attempt. Archaeological evidence supports this extraordinary leap. Sites across Europe, the Americas, and Australia reveal carved spear throwers made from bone, antler, and wood. The care taken in shaping these tools speaks volumes about the cognitive abilities of early humans. They were not improvising in the moment, they were designing, testing, iterating, and passing knowledge through generations. The decorative motifs on some Atlatl suggest that the tool was not purely functional, it carried social, symbolic, or even spiritual weight. A successful hunter with a finely crafted Atlatl was not only feeding their family, they were embodying prestige, skill, and identity. The tool became an extension of self, a manifestation of intellect and foresight. The transition from hand-thrown spears to the Atlatl also changed the rhythm of hunting entirely. Instead of the chaotic, adrenaline-fueled dash to strike, hunters could plan. They could anticipate movements, select optimal positions, and coordinate attacks over greater distances. Herds could be funneled into natural traps, ambushes could be set with precision, and fatigue became less of a limiting factor. The Atlatl allowed the first real integration of strategy, patience, and timing into hunting practices. Humans, who had been prey for so long, could now dominate their encounters with the environment in ways previously impossible. It was the first step in the long evolution from survival to mastery. Yet this innovation also had consequences beyond the immediate success of hunts. The efficiency introduced by the Atlatl altered social structures. Bands of humans could feed larger groups, allowing populations to grow and settlements to become more stable. Resource distribution changed, the ability to strike from afar meant that fewer hunters could secure more calories. The ripple effects on culture, communication, and social organization were profound. Even the human body responded. Repetitive throwing with the Atlatl influenced shoulder and arm musculature, neural patterns, and bone structure over generations. technology and biology began to co-evolve. The physical form of Homo sapiens was molded by the demands of wielding this tool effectively. Consider also the psychological dimension. To strike a dangerous animal from a safe distance alters perception of risk, mastery, and agency. Humans who wielded the Atlatl could experiment with timing and trajectory, observe cause and effect, and refine their technique in ways that direct confrontation never allowed. This was not merely hunting, it was a laboratory for understanding the mechanics of the world, for grasping the invisible forces of motion and leverage. These were lessons that would echo through millennia, forming the cognitive groundwork for later inventions and complex thinking. The Atlatl was the first tool that allowed humans to abstract force and intention, to conceptualize the extension of self beyond immediate bodily reach. Despite this profound impact, the Atlatl remains almost invisible in popular understanding. Our imaginations are captivated by bows and arrows, swords and guns, as though these were the natural evolution of all weapons. Yet each of these tools stands on the foundation laid by the Atlatl. Every projectile weapon after it is simply a refinement of the same principle: extend human reach, increase force, and control distance. The first instance of this principle, realized tens of thousands of years ago, is nearly forgotten. It is remarkable, even humbling, to consider how such a revolutionary idea could fade from collective memory, its influence embedded in bones, artifacts, and silent landscapes rather than in textbooks or monuments. There is also a haunting beauty in the universality of the discovery. Across continents and climates, cultures independently arrived at similar solutions. Australia, North America, and Europe all witnessed versions of the spear thrower appearing within overlapping time frames. This parallel evolution underscores a truth about humanity: the capacity for ingenuity is intrinsic, not incidental. Our ancestors' understanding of leverage, momentum, and design emerged not from formal study but from necessity, observation, and the stubborn desire to survive. In that sense, the Atlatl is both a technical achievement and a testament to the universality of human creativity. Even as the bow eventually replaced the Atlatl in many regions, the shadow of its influence persisted. The lessons learned, the biological adaptations, and the cultural practices it inspired did not vanish. It created a bridge from raw survival to strategic manipulation of the environment, a bridge upon which later technologies would walk. And yet, modern perception often dismisses this achievement as primitive or simplistic. In reality, it was a profound leap, a cognitive and technological milestone that allowed humans to turn vulnerability into advantage, fear into control, and observation into action. In the quiet moments before dawn, when the wind cuts across open tundra and ice reflects pale light, one can almost feel the ghost of that first hunter raising a carved lever to the sky. The tension of muscle, the hum of air over dart, the anticipation, the release, and the immediate understanding of mastery, these moments were humanity's first encounters with long-distance power. They were transformative, intimate, and terrifying in their implications. This is not the story of a simple tool, it is the story of an awakening. The Atlatl gave humans the ability to manipulate distance, to shape their world, to survive, and in doing so, it set the stage for everything that came after. It is a story almost lost to time, but within its loss lies wonder. By remembering the Atlatl, we remember not only ingenuity, but courage, foresight, and the relentless drive to push boundaries. We remember that our ancestors were thinkers, engineers, and dreamers, navigating a dangerous world with nothing more than curiosity, determination, and the simple, elegant tool of a carved stick and a long dart. It is here, in this nearly invisible invention, that we glimpse the first real extension of human power, a quiet revolution that forever changed the trajectory of our species. The Atlatl is not merely an artifact, it is a testament. It tells us that distance can be conquered, that weakness can be transformed, and that even in the harshest landscapes, the human mind is capable of extraordinary leaps. Every future weapon, every strategy, every calculated throw of intention begins here. This is the moment before the bow, before the arrow, before civilization as we know it. This is the point where survival meets ingenuity, and humanity steps beyond its immediate limitations, reaching farther than it ever thought possible. The Atlatl is a tool that seems deceptively simple at first glance. It is, after all, nothing more than a length of wood, sometimes adorned with carvings or weighted ends, designed to hold and launch a slender dart. Yet beneath its modest appearance lies an understanding of physics, mechanics, and the human body that few modern inventors could match without formal training. Its brilliance lies not in complexity, but in efficiency, an elegant amplification of human strength. To truly appreciate the Atlatl is to understand the subtle symphony of forces it orchestrates, the way it transforms ordinary muscle into extraordinary kinetic energy, and the way it reshapes the very interaction between human and world. The human arm, remarkable as it is, has inherent limits. Even a well-trained hunter cannot hurl a spear over great distances with lethal force without quickly tiring. Accuracy suffers, and power diminishes, leaving the hunter exposed to danger. The Atlatl is essentially a lever, a mechanical extension of the arm that increases the effective length, multiplies the applied force, and smooths the motion of the throw. When held correctly, the lever of the Atlatl stores potential energy during the drawing motion, releasing it explosively as the dart leaves the hand. The effect is immediate and dramatic. A small, lightweight projectile moves faster, farther, and with greater stability than it could if thrown by the arm alone. To modern eyes, it is a simple trick of leverage. To the hunter tens of thousands of years ago, it was nothing short of miraculous. Consider the dart itself. Unlike a rigid spear, it flexes in midair, acting almost like a spring. As the Atlatl accelerates the dart, the shaft bends, storing additional elastic energy that is released upon impact. This flex allows for a heavier tip without compromising range, enabling the hunter to pierce thick hides and strike vital organs with precision. The combination of arm extension and dart flex creates a projectile with kinetic energy far beyond what human muscle alone can generate. The dart arcs through the air in a graceful, almost hypnotic flight, its motion both predictable and potent. Observing it, one might see poetry in physics, a union of force and form, velocity and trajectory, all controlled by a human hand guided by experience and instinct. The engineering of the Atlatl reveals another layer of sophistication. Handles are not arbitrary, they are shaped to fit comfortably in the hunter's grip, to allow maximum torque and minimize fatigue. The notch or hook at the end that holds the dart is carefully positioned to ensure release at the precise moment of peak acceleration. Some Atlatls are weighted, which stabilizes the throw, preventing wobble and improving accuracy. The very existence of these refinements speaks to repeated experimentation, to a deep understanding of cause and effect, and to the iterative nature of early engineering. Each design choice reflects a conscious effort to maximize efficiency, to perfect motion, to control energy in a way that seems intuitive but is actually the result of countless hours of observation and trial. The physics of the Atlatl also reshapes the psychological landscape of hunting. Distance becomes a protective barrier, allowing the hunter to engage dangerous prey with reduced risk. The release of a dart carries not just potential lethality, but confidence. Hunters can plan, anticipate, and execute strategies that were previously impossible. They can adjust for wind, elevation, and the erratic movements of their quarry. This mental shift is profound. The hunter is no longer reacting purely to immediate danger, they are calculating, predicting, and controlling the outcome of an encounter before it begins. The Atlatl transforms hunting into a game of skill and intellect, blending intuition with physics in ways that challenge modern perceptions of primitive technology. To understand the power of the Atlatl, it is helpful to compare it with the human arm alone. A spear thrown by hand may reach 20 meters at best, and the energy imparted is constrained by the length of the arm, the strength of the shoulder, and the flexibility of the wrist. With the Atlatl, that distance doubles or even triples. The dart flies faster, hits harder, and carries more momentum. The increased range allows the hunter to engage targets that would otherwise be out of reach, including large herbivores capable of killing a person in a single charge. This shift in capability is not merely quantitative, it is qualitative. It changes the hunter's relationship with the environment, with prey, and with danger. What was once intimate and life-threatening becomes manageable and controllable. The Atlatl allows humans to project power in a way no other species could, establishing a new ecological dynamic that elevates the cognitive and strategic aspects of hunting above brute strength alone. The mastery of the Atlatl also requires profound bodily coordination. Success is not merely a matter of strength, but timing, balance, and rhythm. The hunter must align feet, hips, shoulders, and arms in a coordinated motion that maximizes energy transfer. They must feel the dart flex, sense the optimal release point, and account for environmental factors such as wind and terrain. This repeated practice sculpts the body over generations, creating physical adaptations in the shoulders, spine, and arms. Skeletal studies suggest that habitual Atlatl users developed enhanced joint mobility, tendon resilience, and muscular endurance. In a sense, the Atlatl rewrites the human body to accommodate the demands of its use, illustrating a deep interplay between technology and biology that predates formal science by tens of thousands of years. The flight of the dart also embodies a subtle understanding of aerodynamics. The flexing shaft reduces air resistance, stabilizes the projectile in midair, and prevents tumbling. The weight distribution between tip and shaft affects rotation and impact, allowing the dart to penetrate with maximum efficiency. Hunters may not have measured drag coefficients, but they observed outcomes meticulously. Through trial and error, they refined dart length, mass, and stiffness to produce predictable results. Every throw carried lessons: too flexible, and the dart loses accuracy; too rigid, and it splinters on impact. This learning process reveals the sophistication of early experimentation and the extraordinary capacity of humans to internalize complex systems without formal instruction. The Atlatl is also a social and cultural artifact. Beyond utility, some examples are adorned with carvings of animals, symbols, or abstract patterns. These embellishments suggest a symbolic or ceremonial function, reflecting status, identity, or spiritual significance. A finely carved Atlatl may indicate mastery, prestige, or a role within the social hierarchy. The act of crafting, using, and teaching the weapon likely reinforced communal bonds and transmitted knowledge across generations. The tool is therefore not only a mechanical extension of the arm, but also a conduit for culture, memory, and shared experience. From a broader perspective, the Atlatl represents a profound cognitive leap. It embodies the realization that humans can extend their influence across space, manipulate the environment indirectly, and project force with foresight and precision. It teaches lessons about leverage, momentum, and timing long before formal physics exists. It fosters planning, coordination, and experimentation. It encourages observation of prey behavior and environmental conditions. It cultivates patience, discipline, and a sense of control over outcomes that were once left to chance. The Atlatl is as much a teacher as it is a weapon, guiding the mind to understand forces beyond the immediate reach of the body. It is remarkable to consider how this simple device changed human history. With the Atlatl, small bands of humans could hunt megafauna efficiently, secure more calories, and sustain larger communities. This technological edge influenced population dynamics, settlement patterns, and social organization. Knowledge of the Atlatl, passed through generations, created a repository of skill and insight that went beyond mere survival. It shaped human cognition and culture. The capacity to project force over distance became a foundation for strategic thinking, problem-solving, and the eventual development of more complex technologies. Every projectile weapon that followed, from bows to firearms, carries the conceptual legacy of the Atlatl, its principles quietly embedded in human understanding of leverage and mechanics. Even today, modern experiments with reconstructed Atlatls reveal the astonishing performance of these ancient tools. Darts can reach speeds comparable to arrows, striking with devastating force and surprising accuracy. Observers are often astonished by how little input is required from the thrower to achieve such results, how efficiently energy is transferred through the lever and into the dart. It is a reminder that intelligence is not always obvious in its appearance. The simplest-looking tools may harbor the deepest understanding of the natural world. The Atlatl, carved from bone or wood thousands of years ago, demonstrates a level of insight that continues to challenge contemporary assumptions about prehistoric humans. The Atlatl is, in many ways, a meditation on human ingenuity. It reveals the capacity of early humans to observe, experiment, and abstract principles of motion and force. It bridges the gap between body and environment, thought and action, risk and control. It turns survival into strategy, instinct into skill, and danger into calculation. By examining the mechanics of the Atlatl, we gain insight not only into the physical realities of prehistoric life but also into the cognitive and cultural achievements that laid the groundwork for all subsequent human innovation. It is a testament to the subtle genius that exists at the intersection of necessity, observation, and creativity, a genius that has shaped the trajectory of our species from its earliest days. In the hands of a skilled hunter, the Atlatl is more than a lever. It is an extension of thought into action, a channel for intelligence and foresight, a tool that transforms human capability. It embodies the principles of physics, engineering, and biology, all synthesized in a form that is elegant, efficient, and profoundly effective. The flight of its dart is a silent demonstration of centuries of refinement, of a deep understanding of energy and motion, of the intimate dialogue between human and environment. The Atlatl is not just a weapon, it is a symbol of humanity's first true mastery of the physical world, a bridge between raw potential and realized power, a reminder that even in the harshest of landscapes, human ingenuity has always found a way to soar beyond limitation. Long before humans built cities or carved symbols into stone, long before written language captured the complexity of thought, our ancestors were quietly experimenting with the materials of their world. They lived in landscapes that were harsh, unpredictable, and full of creatures that could crush them in a single swipe. Survival demanded more than instinct, it demanded ingenuity, creativity, and a willingness to observe, test, and adapt. This is the world in which the Atlatl emerged, not as a sudden stroke of genius, but as the culmination of countless small innovations, subtle experiments, and repeated refinements over generations. It is here that humanity first became an engineer, shaping the environment and their tools with a precision and foresight that rivals any later invention. The creation of the Atlatl was not the work of a single mind, but of communities learning through trial and error. Early humans were keen observers of nature. They noticed how a branch, when thrown just so, could travel farther than when thrown differently. They watched animals, noting the angle of a strike or the leverage in a claw's swing, translating these observations into motions they could replicate with tools. Every successful hunt, every failed attempt, carried lessons that were internalized and shared. Over time, these lessons crystallized into the first true engineering principles: leverage, balance, weight distribution, and material selection. The Atlatl was the result of this iterative process, a synthesis of observation, experimentation, and human intuition. The materials available to these early engineers were limited, yet remarkably versatile. Wood, bone, antler, and occasionally ivory formed the core of the Atlatl. Each material required an intimate understanding of its properties: flexibility, tensile strength, weight, and resilience. Not all wood bends the same way, not all bone can withstand repeated force without cracking. Hunters learned to select pieces that would store energy and release it efficiently when throwing a dart. Handles were carved and smoothed for comfort, sometimes adorned with engravings that reflected cultural symbolism or ownership. Even the smallest adjustments, a notch here, a weighted tip there, could drastically improve performance. Every design choice reflected deep cognitive engagement, a process of experimentation that anticipated concepts in physics and ergonomics centuries before they were formally defined. Observation alone was not enough, skillful execution was essential. Young hunters learned to wield the Atlatl under the guidance of experienced elders, practicing repeatedly in controlled conditions. They developed the coordination to align shoulders, hips, and arms in a single fluid motion, mastering the timing required to release a dart at peak acceleration. Accuracy was not a matter of chance, it was learned, honed, and transmitted. In these moments of practice, the Atlatl became more than a tool, it became a teacher. Each throw provided immediate feedback, a dart that wobbled suggested improper grip or release, one that fell short indicated insufficient leverage. The act of learning required patience, observation, and persistence, qualities that shaped both the individual and the community. The engineering process extended beyond the tool itself to the design of the darts. Early humans discovered that length, weight, and flexibility mattered immensely. Darts needed to be light enough to achieve speed but heavy enough to carry sufficient momentum. Flexibility allowed the shaft to bend in midair, storing and releasing energy upon impact, enhancing penetration. Hunters experimented with tip shapes, often flint-knapped to create razor-sharp points. Some tips were barbed, ensuring that a strike would immobilize prey. Every detail reflected a deep understanding of materials and mechanics, even without the benefit of formal science. These innovations were cumulative, passed down and refined across generations, a testament to human curiosity and ingenuity. Communities also developed social systems around the use and maintenance of the Atlatl. The knowledge required to craft and wield it effectively was valuable and often concentrated in experienced individuals. Mentorship was essential, elders demonstrated techniques, shared lessons from past hunts, and guided young hunters in material selection and tool crafting. The Atlatl thus became a nexus of skill, tradition, and social cohesion. It shaped not only survival strategies but also identity, status, and the distribution of knowledge. A skilled hunter wielding a finely crafted Atlatl was more than a provider, they were a teacher, a leader, and a custodian of collective experience. The process of innovation extended into the environment itself. Hunters observed the behaviors of prey, noting patterns of movement, herd dynamics, and seasonal migrations. They experimented with ambush points, natural choke points, and terrain features that could enhance the effectiveness of their weapon. The Atlatl, therefore, was not an isolated artifact, it was part of a broader system of human-environment interaction. Understanding wind direction, slope, and visibility could determine the success or failure of a hunt. Every element of the landscape became a variable in a complex experiment, with the Atlatl as the central tool for translating observation into action. This intimate relationship between humans, tools, and environment also fostered innovation in problem-solving. When one method failed, hunters adapted. If a particular type of wood split too easily, they sought alternatives. If a dart was too heavy to reach sufficient distance, they adjusted length or weight distribution. Each failure was instructive, each success a confirmation of understanding. Over time, these incremental improvements accumulated into a body of knowledge far more sophisticated than modern observers often recognize. The Atlatl was not merely a weapon, it was the product of a sophisticated cognitive process, one that integrated empirical observation, experimentation, and iterative refinement. The Atlatl also reveals the beginnings of abstract thinking. Hunters had to anticipate trajectories, estimate distances, and calculate the force required for a successful strike, all before the dart left their hands. They projected outcomes in their minds, tested hypotheses in the real world, and refined their techniques accordingly. This is the foundation of scientific thinking: observation, prediction, testing, and refinement. Long before formalized science, humans were reasoning in complex ways about motion, energy, and materials, and they were doing so in a world where failure could mean death. Even the smallest innovations carried emotional weight. The process of crafting an Atlatl from raw materials connected the maker to the natural world. Selecting wood or antler required intimate knowledge of trees, animals, and seasonal cycles. Shaping and smoothing the weapon demanded patience and care. Successful use brought not only food but pride, respect, and a sense of mastery over one's environment. The act of innovation was intertwined with survival, identity, and emotion, making the Atlatl both a practical tool and a deeply human expression of creativity. The Atlatl also exemplifies the power of cumulative culture. Knowledge of toolmaking and use was not limited to a single individual, it was shared, taught, and preserved. Each generation inherited not just the physical artifact, but the lessons embedded in its design and use. Improvements were incremental but persistent, resulting in a refinement process that spanned centuries. The sophistication achieved by these early engineers reminds us that intelligence is not always measured in abstract theory, it is measured in observation, experimentation, and the ability to translate knowledge into action. In essence, the Atlatl represents humanity's first steps toward technological mastery. It is a story of curiosity transforming necessity into invention, of observation shaping action, and of experimentation guiding survival. The hunter who wielded it was not only a provider but an innovator, an engineer, and a thinker. In every carved notch, every balanced dart, and every carefully chosen material, we see the intersection of intellect, culture, and survival. This is the world before cities, before writing, before formal science, a world in which human ingenuity was tested against the raw forces of nature and, time and again, prevailed. The brilliance of the Atlatl lies in its subtlety. It is not flashy or ornate, it does not rely on complex mechanisms or artificial power sources. Its genius emerges from understanding, adaptation, and the seamless integration of human ability with the principles of leverage, energy transfer, and environmental observation. Through it, early humans reshaped their world, extending their reach, amplifying their power, and laying the foundations for all future technological development. In every throw, they practiced the art of experimentation, mastery, and foresight, leaving a legacy of ingenuity that resonates across the millennia. By studying the Atlatl, we glimpse the birth of engineering, the earliest forms of experimentation, and the human capacity to manipulate forces far greater than our own. It reminds us that intelligence is not measured solely by written records or formal education, but by the ability to solve problems, refine tools, and adapt to challenges with creativity and foresight. The Atlatl is the embodiment of that principle, a simple stick and dart transformed by human ingenuity into a weapon that reshaped survival, cognition, and culture. It is, in every sense, a testament to the first engineers of humanity, whose quiet innovations echo through time, invisible yet profoundly influential. The world that humans entered tens of thousands of years ago was a place of immense scale and danger, one in which every step carried risk and every encounter could be fatal. The landscape stretched across frozen tundras, vast steppes, and dense forests, but they were dominated not by humans, but by giants. Woolly mammoths moved in herds that could crush a human underfoot without noticing, their tusks slicing through ice and tree alike. Short-faced bears, far larger than modern grizzlies, patrolled the valleys and forests, capable of running at speeds that would leave a human helpless. Saber-toothed cats crouched in ambush, their elongated canines poised to pierce and tear. Even the more familiar creatures, bison, elk, and reindeer, were significantly larger and more dangerous than their modern descendants. In this world, survival was precarious, and humans were physically insignificant by comparison. The presence of such colossal animals forced humans to rethink the way they interacted with their environment. Physical strength alone was insufficient, a direct confrontation with a mammoth or a saber-toothed cat was almost certainly fatal. This imbalance between human fragility and the size of the fauna around them demanded innovation. Observation became a survival skill. Hunters needed to understand patterns of movement, herd behaviors, and the strengths and vulnerabilities of their prey. They could no longer rely solely on speed, instinct, or brute force. In this context, the Atlatl was not merely a weapon, it was a lifeline, a means of transforming human weakness into strategic advantage, a bridge across the lethal gap between predator and prey. The Atlatl allowed humans to hunt these giants without putting themselves directly in harm's way. Standing on a ridge or behind the cover of a tree, a hunter could engage an animal hundreds of times their size. A dart propelled by the lever of the Atlatl carried enough force to pierce thick hide and vital organs, a capability that human arms alone could never achieve. The psychological effect of this newfound reach was as profound as the physical capability it provided. Hunters could anticipate, calculate, and control encounters with creatures that had once dominated them entirely. Where once fear dictated action, strategy began to emerge. Distance became a tool, precision a weapon, and the once intimidating giants of the Ice Age could be confronted on human terms. The megafauna themselves were not passive participants in this struggle. Evolution had equipped them with defenses honed over millennia: thick hides, massive muscles, long tusks, keen senses, and sophisticated social behaviors. Herd animals, for example, would often protect vulnerable members, circle in formation, or stampede to ward off predators. Apex predators like saber-toothed cats had learned to exploit terrain, strike from concealment, and coordinate hunts within their social groups. Humans entering this arena were entering a world already optimized for survival and predation. The Atlatl, then, represents a response to these evolutionary pressures, a countermeasure that allowed humans to match, and sometimes surpass, the effectiveness of their larger competitors. It was a technology born from necessity, refined through observation and repeated application. Hunting with the Atlatl also demanded cooperation and coordination. While a single hunter could achieve remarkable results, many hunts involved multiple individuals working together. Groups would position themselves strategically around herds, driving animals toward traps or ambush points. The combination of skill, strategy, and the extended reach provided by the Atlatl enabled humans to orchestrate hunts that were both efficient and lethal. These group hunts strengthened social bonds, reinforced hierarchies, and transmitted knowledge across generations. The Atlatl, in this sense, was not just a personal tool, it was a cornerstone of social organization, facilitating collaboration and shared success in a dangerous world. The terrain itself shaped the way the Atlatl was used. Ice Age landscapes were varied and challenging, ranging from glacial valleys to open plains and dense forests. Each environment presented unique challenges and opportunities. On open tundra, hunters could exploit sightlines to maximize range, taking advantage of the dart's extended flight. In forests or uneven terrain, ambushes became crucial, requiring precise timing and careful placement. The Atlatl allowed for adaptability across these diverse landscapes. Its portability, ease of use, and effectiveness made it suitable for the varied environments humans occupied. The ability to manipulate distance, angle, and velocity gave hunters the versatility needed to survive in unpredictable ecosystems dominated by megafauna. The emotional and psychological dimensions of these hunts cannot be overstated. Confronting an animal hundreds of times one's size was a visceral experience, charged with tension, fear, and adrenaline. The Atlatl introduced a measure of control into this chaos. Hunters could plan their attacks, gauge distances, and anticipate reactions. The moment of release, when the dart left the hand and began its flight, was a culmination of observation, skill, and timing. Success brought not just sustenance but a profound sense of mastery over one's environment. The hunt became a theater of intellect and precision rather than a desperate struggle for survival. This shift in agency marked a turning point in human evolution, emphasizing strategy, foresight, and coordination over brute strength alone. The effectiveness of the Atlatl also had cascading effects on human physiology and behavior. Regular use of the weapon shaped muscle development, bone density, and joint mobility in the arms, shoulders, and torso. Hunters refined coordination, timing, and spatial awareness, creating a feedback loop between tool use and bodily adaptation. The repeated practice of throwing, observing outcomes, and adjusting technique fostered cognitive skills related to planning, prediction, and risk assessment. In essence, the Atlatl was a tool that simultaneously transformed the external world and the internal capacities of its users. It was a catalyst for both technological and biological evolution. Beyond survival, the Atlatl reshaped human perception of the world. It allowed humans to imagine scenarios beyond immediate danger, to calculate outcomes over distance, and to engage with their environment in a new way. Prey that had once been untouchable could now be approached indirectly. Threats could be neutralized before reaching the human body. The hunter's mind expanded to incorporate not just immediate sensory input but abstract concepts of leverage, trajectory, and timing. This mental expansion laid the groundwork for later innovations in toolmaking, strategy, and even social organization. By mastering the physics of the dart and the behavior of prey, early humans were developing a form of practical intelligence that extended beyond the purely physical into the realm of abstract reasoning. The Atlatl also contributed to the shaping of culture. Successful hunters gained status and respect within their communities, and the knowledge of how to craft and wield the weapon effectively became a form of cultural capital. Elders taught apprentices, rituals developed around the hunt, and stories were told to commemorate skill, bravery, and ingenuity. These cultural practices reinforced the value of the Atlatl and ensured its transmission across generations. It was not merely a weapon but a focal point for identity, knowledge, and social cohesion. In this way, the Atlatl influenced both the material and social evolution of human societies, embedding technology within the fabric of human experience. The environmental impact of the Atlatl should not be overlooked. Its introduction changed hunting strategies, prey populations, and the dynamics of entire ecosystems. By enabling humans to take down large herbivores more efficiently, it exerted selective pressures on animal populations, influencing migration patterns, reproductive behaviors, and social structures. Predator-prey relationships were subtly reshaped, and the balance of Ice Age ecosystems began to reflect the growing influence of human ingenuity. The Atlatl was both a weapon and an agent of ecological change, demonstrating the profound consequences of technological innovation on the natural world. In reflecting on this era, one sees a world of contrast: immense physical danger met with human ingenuity, fragility met with strategic mastery, fear transformed into calculation. The Atlatl allowed humans to navigate these contrasts with unprecedented effectiveness. It bridged the gap between vulnerability and agency, enabling small bands of humans to confront animals that had previously dominated them entirely. The weapon was not only a tool of survival but a catalyst for cognitive, social, and ecological transformation. Its impact resonated far beyond the immediate context of the hunt, shaping the trajectory of human evolution in ways that would echo through millennia. The legacy of the Atlatl is profound precisely because it represents such a radical shift in the human condition. For the first time, humans could exert influence at a distance, turning their intellect into power, their observation into effect. It was a revolution that required no metal, no complex machines, no formalized science, only the careful application of observation, experimentation, and insight. In this frozen, predator-filled world, the Atlatl allowed humans to not merely survive, but to assert agency, to shape their environment, and to begin the slow transformation from prey into predator. In understanding the role of this simple yet extraordinary tool, we glimpse the moment when humans first learned to match the scale of the giants around them, not through strength alone, but through intelligence, innovation, and foresight. The Atlatl is, in many ways, the first step in the long journey of humanity asserting mastery over the physical world. It demonstrates that survival is not merely a matter of endurance or brute force, but of observation, adaptation, and clever manipulation of tools and environment. By giving humans the ability to confront and overcome creatures far larger and stronger than themselves, it set a precedent for all subsequent technological innovations. It is a reminder that intelligence and ingenuity have always been humanity's most potent weapons, and that even in the harshest of landscapes, human creativity can turn fragility into power, fear into strategy, and limitation into possibility. Long before humans carved cities out of stone or wrote laws on clay tablets, they were shaping the world around them with the simplest of tools, guided by instinct, curiosity, and necessity. Among these tools, the Atlatl stands out not merely for its utility, but for the way it transformed raw materials into objects of both function and meaning. The creation of an Atlatl required more than technical skill, it demanded a deep understanding of wood, bone, antler, and sometimes ivory. It required foresight, patience, and an intuitive grasp of balance, leverage, and human biomechanics. Each weapon was more than a hunting device, it was a crafted extension of the hunter's body, mind, and imagination, a testament to human creativity in a world that demanded constant adaptation. The process began with material selection. Hunters did not choose their wood or bone haphazardly. They understood which species, which age of branch or antler, would provide the right combination of strength, flexibility, and resilience. Certain hardwoods could endure repeated stress without cracking, while younger, more pliable materials allowed energy to transfer efficiently to the dart. Bone and antler were prized for their natural strength and durability, often sourced from animals already hunted for food. Even minor imperfections mattered. Knots in wood or microfractures in bone could compromise performance. The careful selection of raw materials illustrates not only a practical understanding of mechanical properties but also a sensory intimacy with the environment, a tactile knowledge honed over countless seasons of observation. Once a material was selected, the shaping process began. Atlatls were carved and smoothed with stone tools, each curve and contour deliberately designed to fit the hunter's hand and optimize the transfer of energy. Handles were rounded, sometimes hollowed to reduce weight, and occasionally adorned with grooves or ridges to improve grip. The notch or hook at the distal end, which held the dart, had to be precisely shaped. Too tight, and the dart would stick; too loose, and accuracy would suffer. Some Atlatls were weighted, often with carved stone or additional bone pieces, to stabilize the throw and counterbalance the force of release. Every adjustment reflected a nuanced understanding of physics, ergonomics, and human anatomy, long before these concepts existed as formal knowledge. The hunter's body became a collaborator in the engineering process, guiding the shaping of the tool through repeated testing and instinctive adjustments. Decoration played a subtle yet significant role in the construction of Atlatls. Many surviving examples show engravings of animals, abstract patterns, or symbolic markings. These were not purely ornamental, they carried meaning, identity, and perhaps even ritual significance. A hunter's Atlatl could convey skill, status, or tribal affiliation. Some engravings may have served as reminders of past hunts, embodiments of spiritual beliefs, or markers of lineage. In this sense, each Atlatl was both practical and personal, a weapon that could feed a family, but also tell a story about the person who wielded it. The act of decorating the tool connected the hunter to their culture, their ancestors, and the natural world, transforming a functional object into a vessel of memory and meaning. Crafting an Atlatl also demanded extensive experimentation and iteration. Hunters learned through observation and practice how small changes in weight, length, or curvature could drastically alter performance. A slight modification to the hook could improve release consistency, adjusting the balance point could extend range or increase force. Every test throw provided feedback, teaching lessons about leverage, trajectory, and energy transfer. This iterative process was akin to a laboratory experiment, conducted not with written notes or mathematical equations, but with keen observation, trial and error, and an intimate understanding of cause and effect. Over generations, these incremental improvements led to increasingly sophisticated designs, reflecting the cumulative wisdom of countless artisans and hunters. The construction of darts was an equally critical aspect of the process. Darts were often longer and more flexible than hand-thrown spears, designed to store and release elastic energy efficiently. The shafts were selected and shaped to achieve an ideal balance of weight, stiffness, and flexibility. Tips were typically flaked from stone or carved from bone, sharpened to penetrate thick hides and deliver lethal force. Some tips were barbed to ensure that once struck, the prey could not easily escape. Hunters experimented with the length-to-weight ratio, the tapering of shafts, and the attachment of fletching or stabilizing elements to improve flight characteristics. The design of the dart was a delicate interplay between material properties, human biomechanics, and environmental variables like wind, terrain, and distance, revealing a level of sophistication that rivals modern engineering in principle, if not in formal calculation. The use of fire and other environmental tools also intersected with Atlatl craftsmanship. Fire could be used to harden wooden components, dry and cure antler pieces, or even create adhesives for composite parts. Natural resins or plant fibers might be applied to improve grip or secure components. Hunters learned to manipulate these materials with patience and precision, understanding how heat, moisture, and pressure affected performance. Each step required observation, adaptation, and a feedback loop between the maker and the tool. In shaping the Atlatl, humans were simultaneously shaping their understanding of materials, physics, and the relationship between body and environment. Beyond the technical, the Atlatl also facilitated social learning and mentorship. Knowledge of crafting, balancing, and wielding the weapon was rarely isolated to a single individual. Elders instructed the young, passing down techniques honed over decades. A single community could develop subtle variations in design, reflecting local resources, hunting practices, and aesthetic preferences. The sharing of knowledge reinforced social cohesion, created bonds of apprenticeship and trust, and ensured continuity of both survival skills and cultural identity. The Atlatl was therefore more than a weapon, it was a conduit for collective memory, a vehicle for transmitting experience and wisdom across generations. Emotion and pride were inseparable from the process of crafting and using an Atlatl. A finely made Atlatl was a source of identity, a manifestation of skill, patience, and insight. Hunters understood that mastery required not only physical prowess but also mental discipline and aesthetic sensibility. Success with the tool brought more than food, it brought respect, recognition, and a sense of harmony with the natural world. The act of creation itself was a form of reflection, a meditation on balance, proportion, and the interdependence between human and environment. Each curve, each notch, each polished surface carried the imprint of thought, care, and intention. The Atlatl also had a profound impact on human interaction with the landscape. With its extended reach and enhanced force, hunters could exploit terrain more effectively, strike from cover, and manipulate the movements of prey. Hills, ridges, forests, and rivers became tools in their own right, part of a broader strategy that combined human ingenuity with environmental observation. The Atlatl enabled humans to extend influence across space, transforming the landscape from an uncontrollable threat into a theater for strategy, planning, and skill. In this sense, the weapon reshaped not only hunting practices but the cognitive map of the world itself. Finally, the Atlatl's construction illustrates the deep interconnectedness of human culture, cognition, and survival. Each weapon embodies technical skill, material knowledge, social learning, and aesthetic expression. It demonstrates how humans approached problems systematically, experimented creatively, and integrated observation with action. The Atlatl is therefore both a practical instrument and a cultural artifact, a lens through which we can understand the evolution of intelligence, skill, and community. It is a reminder that innovation does not always arrive with fanfare, often, it emerges quietly, through patience, observation, and a relentless desire to understand and adapt to the world. By studying the Atlatl, we glimpse the earliest forms of engineering, the first careful application of observation to action, and the deep human capacity for creativity in the face of necessity. It is a tool that bridges the physical and cognitive, the practical and symbolic, the individual and communal. In the shaping of wood, bone, and antler, humans were not merely producing weapons, they were producing knowledge, identity, and culture. The Atlatl stands as a testament to ingenuity, a material expression of human intelligence, and a reminder that even in the harshest conditions, our ancestors were capable of extraordinary insight and artistry. Through its creation and use, the foundations of technological thinking, problem-solving, and cultural transmission were laid, echoing across millennia and reminding us of the quiet genius embedded in every carefully carved notch and balanced shaft. The world of Ice Age hunting was a symphony of danger and necessity, where every decision could mean the difference between life and death. Early humans were not the dominant predators in their landscapes. They were small, vulnerable, and surrounded by animals that dwarfed them in size, strength, and speed. Survival required more than courage. It demanded strategy, foresight, and the clever application of tools. The Atlatl emerged within this crucible not just as a weapon, but as a transformative extension of human capability, allowing hunters to engage dangerous prey at a distance and to shift the balance of power in their favor. Its significance lies not only in its physical utility but also in the profound ways it reshaped human interaction with the natural world. Hunting before the Atlatl was a perilous and intimate endeavor. Early humans had to close the distance with massive herbivores, dodge powerful hooves, and avoid the jaws of predators. Group coordination was essential, with multiple hunters needed to surround or drive prey into natural traps, such as cliffs, swamps, or narrow valleys. Even with careful planning, injuries and fatalities were common. The physical and psychological toll of these hunts was enormous. Fear and adrenaline dominated the experience, and success relied heavily on brute strength, speed, and instinct. The human arm, no matter how strong, was limited in its capacity to project force safely over distance, leaving hunters exposed to the risks posed by their prey. The introduction of the Atlatl fundamentally changed this dynamic. By allowing a hunter to throw a dart with far greater velocity and force than could be achieved with the arm alone, it created a new form of leverage, both literal and metaphorical. Hunters could now strike from a distance, reducing immediate exposure to danger. The physical gap provided by the weapon offered a psychological advantage as well, allowing humans to approach hunting with calculation and strategy rather than sheer desperation. This shift in agency marked a pivotal moment in human evolution. Humans were no longer entirely reactive creatures in a dangerous world. They were beginning to assert control, to manipulate outcomes, and to engage with risk on their own terms. The effectiveness of the Atlatl depended on understanding the mechanics of motion, energy, and trajectory. Hunters learned to anticipate how the dart would flex in midair, how the hook would release at just the right moment, and how to position their bodies for maximum leverage. They observed environmental conditions, wind, slope, and distance, and adjusted their technique accordingly. This process was not theoretical, it was intensely practical, developed through repeated experimentation and immediate feedback. Every throw was an experiment, every hunt a test of skill and understanding. Success demanded precision, timing, and adaptability, as well as a deep integration of body and mind in a coordinated, fluid motion. The darts themselves were equally sophisticated. They needed to be long enough to store energy yet light enough to maintain speed, flexible yet resilient, sharp and durable. Hunters discovered through trial and error the optimal balance of length, weight, and material. Tips were shaped for penetration, sometimes barbed to prevent prey from escaping, sometimes designed for maximum impact. The combination of Atlatl and dart created a system far more powerful and efficient than hand-thrown spears, allowing a single hunter to achieve what previously required a coordinated group effort. This leap in capability transformed hunting into an exercise in strategy, observation, and precision. With the Atlatl, the human relationship with megafauna began to shift. Prey that had once been nearly untouchable could now be engaged indirectly. Large herbivores could be struck from a distance, predators could be deterred, and the success rate of hunts increased dramatically. This not only improved survival but also influenced the development of social structures. Hunters who mastered the Atlatl could feed more people, gain status, and transmit specialized knowledge to the next generation. Knowledge of the weapon became a form of cultural capital, essential for maintaining social cohesion and ensuring the transfer of critical survival skills. The Atlatl thus influenced not just individual survival but also the organization and evolution of human communities. The landscapes in which the Atlatl was used were varied and demanding. Hunters moved across open tundras, dense forests, and rugged hills, each environment presenting distinct challenges and opportunities. Open plains allowed for long-range strikes, while forests and rocky terrain required ambush tactics and careful positioning. The Atlatl's versatility made it effective across these different landscapes, enabling humans to exploit natural features to their advantage. Hills, cliffs, and water sources became strategic elements in hunting, integrated into a broader understanding of movement, visibility, and the behavior of prey. Humans were learning to manipulate not just their weapons, but the terrain itself, turning the environment into an ally rather than an uncontrollable hazard. The psychological impact of the Atlatl extended beyond the moment of the hunt. The ability to project force at a distance transformed the human perception of danger, power, and agency. Where once the approach of a mammoth or a saber-toothed cat induced panic, hunters could now anticipate encounters, calculate risk, and execute strategies with confidence. Mastery of the Atlatl required patience, focus, and situational awareness, fostering cognitive skills that extended far beyond hunting. These experiences likely shaped early human thought, teaching concepts of cause and effect, timing, and prediction, and forming the foundation for later technological and cultural innovations. Group hunting with the Atlatl further reinforced social bonds and cooperative behavior. Teams of hunters could coordinate attacks, drive prey toward kill zones, and maximize the efficiency of each hunt. Communication, signaling, and timing became crucial, and knowledge of terrain, wind patterns, and animal behavior was shared and refined collectively. The success of a hunt depended not only on individual skill but on the coordination of the group, reinforcing social structures and communal learning. The Atlatl thus functioned as a catalyst for both individual and collective intelligence, encouraging collaboration, mentorship, and the accumulation of knowledge across generations. The evolutionary implications of the Atlatl are profound. Regular use of the weapon influenced the development of human musculature, joint structure, and coordination. The repeated motion of throwing with the lever-like device required shoulder mobility, torso rotation, and precise timing, shaping the body over generations. Cognitive development was similarly affected, as hunters engaged in abstract thinking about trajectories, leverage, and energy transfer. The integration of observation, experimentation, and action fostered problem-solving skills and adaptive thinking, reinforcing the coevolution of tool use, cognition, and physical capability. The Atlatl also left a lasting ecological impact. By increasing the efficiency of hunting, humans could more effectively manage prey populations, influencing migration patterns, herd behavior, and the balance of ecosystems. Predators and prey were forced to adapt to the presence of this new, distant threat. The weapon became a factor in the evolutionary pressures shaping megafauna and the broader environment. Humans, through the use of the Atlatl, were beginning to exert influence over their world in ways that extended far beyond immediate survival, demonstrating an early form of technological agency that would echo through millennia. Emotion and cultural significance were intertwined with the Atlatl. Hunters who mastered the weapon experienced pride, confidence, and a sense of mastery over their environment. The skill required elevated the hunter's status within the group, creating narratives of respect, accomplishment, and mentorship. Decorative elements on Atlatls, from carvings to symbolic markings, reflected cultural identity, ritual significance, and personal expression. These objects were therefore more than weapons, they were embodiments of human ingenuity, social cohesion, and shared experience. Through them, humans expressed not only survival skill but also creativity, identity, and connection to the natural and spiritual worlds. The Atlatl, in essence, represents a convergence of technology, cognition, and culture. It illustrates how a simple yet sophisticated tool could extend human reach, transform interactions with the environment, and catalyze social and cognitive development. The mastery of this weapon required observation, experimentation, practice, and teaching, fostering skills that transcended the immediate act of hunting. It allowed humans to manipulate forces far greater than themselves, to engage with danger strategically, and to assert agency in a world dominated by giants. The Atlatl is thus emblematic of the early human journey from vulnerability to empowerment, a tool that shaped not only survival but the trajectory of intelligence, culture, and social organization. The legacy of the Atlatl is visible in the cognitive and social patterns that persist in humanity. Its use demanded strategic thinking, foresight, and cooperation, qualities that underpin much of human society and technology today. By enabling humans to project power across distance, it shifted the paradigm of interaction with the world, laying the foundation for future innovations, from bows and arrows to firearms, and ultimately to complex engineering and mechanized tools. The Atlatl demonstrates that intelligence is expressed not solely through abstract reasoning or written language but through observation, experimentation, and the capacity to manipulate both the environment and the tools at one's disposal. In reflecting on the role of the Atlatl, one recognizes its profound impact on human evolution. It represents the first true technological leap that extended human capability beyond the limitations of the body. It transformed the relationship between humans and their prey, introduced strategy into survival, fostered social cohesion, and shaped both physical and cognitive development. Through its creation and mastery, early humans began to exert control over their environment, demonstrating the remarkable capacity for ingenuity, adaptation, and foresight that defines our species. In every carefully carved notch, every balanced dart, and every successful hunt, the Atlatl stands as a testament to the early human journey from vulnerability to mastery, from instinct to strategy, and from simple survival to deliberate influence over the world around them. Long before the bow and arrow became symbols of hunting skill and technological sophistication, the Atlatl had already rewritten the rules of survival. It was more than a tool, it was an extension of the hunter's body, a device that transformed raw strength into precise, controlled force, and a bridge between human ingenuity and the natural world. Its significance lies not only in its mechanical advantages but also in the profound cognitive and cultural shifts it enabled. With the Atlatl, humans could engage prey at a distance, orchestrate complex hunting strategies, and cultivate a level of foresight and patience that reshaped their interaction with the environment. The story of the Atlatl is, in many ways, the story of humanity's first conscious exercise of control over nature. The Atlatl allowed hunters to overcome one of the most pressing limitations of the human body, the inability to project force over long distances. Even the strongest and most skilled throwers could not match the velocity and power delivered by a dart launched with the mechanical advantage of the Atlatl. By lengthening the arm and incorporating leverage, it amplified the kinetic energy imparted to the projectile, producing speeds and accuracy that rivaled modern hand-thrown weapons. This mechanical insight may seem simple to us today, but in a prehistoric context, it represented a revolutionary leap in problem-solving. Humans were transforming observation and experimentation into tangible results, turning trial and error into cumulative knowledge, and reshaping their relationship with life and death in the process. The psychological impact of wielding the Atlatl was profound. Before its invention, hunting large prey involved close confrontation with enormous, powerful animals, often resulting in injury or death. The Atlatl introduced a new dimension, distance. Hunters could strike without immediate exposure to harm, changing the emotional tenor of the hunt. Fear was replaced, at least partially, by calculation and anticipation. The hunter could observe, plan, and act with foresight, engaging with danger in a controlled, measured way. This transformation of experience, from reactive survival to strategic engagement, marked a critical cognitive development in human evolution. It was the first time humans could manipulate outcomes with precision, bridging instinct and intellect through a single, elegantly simple tool. The Atlatl also reshaped the social dimension of hunting. While a single skilled hunter could achieve impressive results, many hunts involved coordinated group strategies. Teams of hunters could drive prey toward ambush points, cover multiple angles of approach, and maximize efficiency using the extended reach of the Atlatl. This cooperation required communication, shared understanding, and the transmission of specialized knowledge. Hunters who mastered the weapon gained prestige, became repositories of cultural and technical knowledge, and guided younger members of the community. The Atlatl was not merely a tool for survival, it was a vector for social cohesion, mentorship, and the accumulation of collective experience, linking technological innovation with the evolution of culture. Environmental understanding was central to the effective use of the Atlatl. Hunters observed terrain, wind patterns, animal behavior, and seasonal movements, integrating these variables into their strategies. Hills, ridges, rivers, and forests became tools in themselves, providing vantage points, cover, or natural channels to funnel prey. The Atlatl amplified human capacity to exploit these features, allowing for precise, calculated interventions in the natural world. Hunters learned to read subtle signs, broken branches, tracks in snow, shifts in herd behavior, and adjust their throws accordingly. This heightened engagement with the environment reflects a sophisticated interplay between observation, cognition, and action, demonstrating that technological mastery and environmental literacy evolved hand in hand. The darts used with the Atlatl were themselves products of intricate design and experimentation. They needed to be light enough to maintain velocity yet heavy enough to deliver lethal force, flexible enough to store elastic energy but rigid enough to maintain trajectory. Tips were sharpened, often barbed, to ensure penetration and retention, and shafts were carefully balanced for optimal performance. Hunters observed the outcomes of each throw, adjusted materials and dimensions, and refined techniques over countless repetitions. This iterative process reveals a proto-engineering mindset, where empirical observation informed modifications, and improvements accumulated across generations. The dart, paired with the Atlatl, became a sophisticated system capable of precise, lethal strikes across distances that were previously unimaginable. The mastery of the Atlatl also fostered physical and cognitive adaptations. Repeated use strengthened shoulder, arm, and torso muscles while enhancing coordination and timing. Hunters developed an acute sense of spatial awareness, trajectory, and velocity. Cognitive skills such as planning, prediction, and risk assessment were honed in real time, as the hunter continuously integrated observation, judgment, and action. The Atlatl thus became a catalyst for coevolution, as humans refined their tools, their bodies and minds adapted to meet the demands of effective use. This feedback loop between technology, physiology, and cognition represents one of the earliest examples of humans shaping their own evolutionary trajectory through innovation. Cultural significance accompanied technical mastery. Some Atlatls were decorated with carvings of animals, symbols, or abstract patterns, indicating a role beyond mere utility. These markings may have conveyed status, identity, spiritual significance, or tribal affiliation. The creation and adornment of the weapon were acts of expression, connecting the hunter to ancestors, community, and the broader natural world. Crafting an Atlatl involved patience, foresight, and care, making the process itself a ritualized act. In this way, the Atlatl functioned simultaneously as a tool, a cultural artifact, and a symbol of human ingenuity, bridging the material and symbolic dimensions of early human life. The ecological impact of the Atlatl is also noteworthy. By increasing hunting efficiency, humans were able to influence prey populations, migration patterns, and the dynamics of ecosystems. The weapon allowed humans to exert selective pressure on megafauna, subtly reshaping evolutionary trajectories and altering predator-prey relationships. This early example of humans as ecological agents illustrates that technological innovation extends beyond immediate survival, affecting species interactions and environmental balances on a large scale. The Atlatl is therefore not just a tool of personal empowerment, it is a vector for ecological influence, reflecting humanity's growing capacity to manipulate the natural world. Emotionally, the Atlatl transformed the hunter's experience. Success brought more than nourishment, it brought confidence, pride, and a sense of mastery over one's environment. Each throw was a negotiation with forces far larger than the human body, the arc of the dart, the weight of the animal, the uncertainty of terrain. The skillful hunter felt both vulnerability and control simultaneously, navigating danger with intelligence and foresight. The weapon allowed humans to engage with risk on their own terms, turning fear into strategy and creating a sense of agency that was deeply empowering. In this way, the Atlatl shaped not only survival outcomes but the inner life of the hunter, cultivating focus, patience, and an intimate understanding of cause and effect. The Atlatl also fostered cumulative cultural knowledge. Techniques, materials, and strategies were shared within communities, passed from elders to apprentices, and refined over generations. Local variations emerged, reflecting resource availability, environmental conditions, and cultural preferences. The transmission of knowledge created continuity and cohesion, ensuring that critical skills were preserved and enhanced. In this sense, the Atlatl was both a practical tool and a repository of cultural memory, linking technology, social structure, and tradition in a single artifact. Ultimately, the Atlatl exemplifies humanity's first conscious extension of influence over the physical world. It embodies the principles of leverage, trajectory, and energy transfer, demonstrating that intelligence is expressed not only through abstract reasoning but through observation, experimentation, and skilled action. It transformed hunting from a desperate confrontation with raw power into a strategic, controlled, and skillful engagement. It reshaped social structures, enhanced cognition, influenced physiology, and even altered ecological systems. Its invention represents a pivotal moment in human history, a first leap from vulnerability toward mastery, from instinct to foresight, and from reactive survival to calculated agency. The legacy of the Atlatl is evident in the trajectory of human innovation. Its principles underpin later projectile technologies, from bows and arrows to modern firearms. Its use required observation, experimentation, and iteration, laying the foundation for engineering thinking and technological problem-solving. It fostered social learning, cultural expression, and cognitive development. By mastering the Atlatl, early humans achieved a remarkable synthesis of physical skill, intellectual insight, and cultural continuity. It is a testament to the ingenuity, adaptability, and creativity that define our species, a symbol of the first moment when humans began to extend their influence beyond the limits of their bodies and reshape the world with intelligence, strategy, and foresight. The Atlatl represents not only a technological breakthrough but also a window into the minds of early humans, revealing how they perceived, interacted with, and ultimately began to master their environment. In the harsh and unpredictable landscapes of the Pleistocene, survival depended on more than instinct or raw strength. It required foresight, planning, and the ability to manipulate the world indirectly. Before the Atlatl, humans were constrained by their physical limits, vulnerable to the enormous animals and formidable predators that shared their habitats. The invention of a simple lever, a shaft designed to extend the arm and launch a dart with precision and force, transformed these limitations into opportunities, allowing humans to engage the world on a fundamentally new scale. The power of the Atlatl lies in its elegant simplicity. By extending the length of the arm, it amplifies the force imparted to a dart, producing velocities and ranges impossible with the hand alone. The dart itself, often long, flexible, and carefully weighted, stores and releases energy in a manner that increases penetration and accuracy. The interaction between human motion, leverage, and elastic potential in the dart creates a system that is deceptively sophisticated, one that early humans had mastered through observation, experimentation, and iterative refinement. This is not mere happenstance, it is a product of deliberate human ingenuity. Over generations, hunters learned the precise dimensions, weights, and flex patterns that produced optimal results, demonstrating an intuitive understanding of mechanics and physics long before these principles were formally articulated. Hunting with the Atlatl required not only physical skill but also acute cognitive engagement. Each throw demanded calculation and anticipation. The hunter had to judge distance, angle, and trajectory, adjust for wind or terrain, and consider the behavior of the prey. Megafauna, from mammoths to giant bison, were formidable opponents with complex movement patterns and social behaviors. Engaging such animals necessitated strategic thinking and coordination, particularly in group hunts where multiple individuals worked together to drive prey toward ambush points. The Atlatl allowed humans to project power at a distance, enabling them to shape outcomes in ways that were previously impossible. The weapon transformed hunting from a desperate confrontation into a calculated exercise in skill, timing, and observation. The use of the Atlatl also facilitated a profound psychological shift. Previously, encounters with large prey were immediate and perilous, producing fear, adrenaline, and reactive decision-making. With the Atlatl, hunters could manage risk, maintain composure, and engage in forethought. The ability to influence events from a safe distance fostered a sense of agency and control, allowing humans to think ahead, anticipate reactions, and execute complex strategies. This cognitive expansion likely influenced broader aspects of thought, encouraging problem-solving, planning, and the integration of abstract concepts into daily life. The Atlatl, therefore, was not merely a physical tool, it was a catalyst for intellectual development, training both mind and body in tandem. The craftsmanship of the Atlatl reveals further insight into early human sophistication. Each weapon required careful selection of materials, shaping, and balancing. Woods with the correct combination of flexibility and strength were chosen, bones or antlers were carved and smoothed, and notches were precisely aligned to ensure consistent release. Some Atlatls incorporated weights or counterbalances to stabilize throws, while decorative carvings reflected cultural identity, status, or ritual significance. The creation of an Atlatl was both a technical and artistic endeavor, combining utility with personal and cultural expression. This dual nature underscores the intersection of function, creativity, and social meaning in early human technology. Darts, too, were crafted with attention to detail. The interplay between shaft length, weight, stiffness, and tip design determined the effectiveness of each throw. Hunters understood through experience how minor adjustments could dramatically alter performance, and they iteratively refined these variables to suit specific prey, environments, and conditions. Barbed or sharpened tips increased lethality, while flexible shafts stored elastic energy that released upon impact. The process demonstrates early experimentation with dynamics and materials science, achieved without written documentation or formal instruction. Each dart was a miniature study in cause and effect, a tangible manifestation of human problem-solving and innovation. The Atlatl's impact extended beyond individual hunting prowess to social and cultural dimensions. Mastery of the weapon was a mark of the Atlatl, thus influenced both evolution and culture, demonstrating the interdependence of technology, biology, and thought in human history. Emotion and experience were inseparable from practical mastery. The thrill of a successful throw, the satisfaction of precise control, and the relief of effective risk management all contributed to the psychological resonance of the weapon. Hunters developed patience, focus, and an intimate understanding of cause and effect. Every hunt, every throw, and every refinement of technique carried lessons about precision, timing, and adaptation. The Atlatl was a conduit for skill, learning, and personal growth, transforming the hunter's engagement with the world into a disciplined, deliberate practice. The ecological consequences of the Atlatl were also significant. Increased hunting efficiency altered predator-prey dynamics, influencing herd behavior, migration patterns, and population structures. Humans became a more effective force within their ecosystems, capable of shaping animal populations and exerting selective pressure on species. This early technological influence demonstrates the profound capacity of human innovation to alter not only immediate survival outcomes but also the broader patterns of life within an environment. The Atlatl was, in effect, an early instrument of ecological agency, integrating human intelligence into the rhythms of the natural world. Finally, the Atlatl serves as a testament to human ingenuity and foresight. It represents a leap from reliance on raw strength to strategic engagement, from reactive survival to calculated action. It embodies the principles of leverage, energy transfer, and precision in a tool that is deceptively simple yet remarkably effective. The mastery of the Atlatl required observation, experimentation, and learning, skills that would underpin future technological developments. It reshaped human cognition, social structures, and environmental influence, marking a pivotal moment in our evolutionary journey. Through it, early humans demonstrated that intelligence is not abstract or distant, it is practical, embodied, and profoundly transformative. The Atlatl allowed humans to extend themselves beyond their physical limitations, to assert agency in a dangerous world, and to lay the foundation for the complex technological and cultural achievements that would follow. The Atlatl represents a remarkable intersection of human creativity, observation, and survival instinct, a technology that transformed the way early humans engaged with the world and with one another. Unlike tools that merely enhance brute force, the Atlatl amplified human cognition, requiring precision, timing, and a profound understanding of mechanics and the environment. Its invention allowed humans to engage large prey from a distance, reducing risk and expanding the possibilities of survival. This simple yet revolutionary device was far more than a weapon, it was an extension of the hunter's mind and body, a conduit through which skill, observation, and foresight could be projected into the natural world. Hunting before the Atlatl demanded close proximity to formidable creatures, exposing humans to danger at every turn. A direct confrontation with a mammoth or a saber-toothed cat could be fatal, and even smaller herbivores could inflict serious injury through hooves or defensive charges. Humans compensated with cooperative strategies, ambush tactics, and persistence, but these measures were inherently limited by the range and power of human arms. The Atlatl, by contrast, introduced a new variable, distance. By extending the reach of a throw, it allowed hunters to influence events far beyond the limits of their own bodies. This capacity for indirect action not only enhanced physical safety but also altered the hunter's cognitive approach to risk, planning, and strategy. The mechanics of the Atlatl reflect a sophisticated understanding of leverage and energy transfer. The lever principle embedded in the shaft allowed hunters to impart significantly more kinetic energy to a dart than could be achieved with the arm alone. Darts were carefully crafted to complement this mechanism, with attention to weight, flexibility, and balance. Sharp, often barbed tips ensured penetration and retention, while the length and stiffness of the shaft optimized energy storage and release. Hunters learned these principles through iterative experimentation, observing outcomes, adjusting designs, and passing down refinements across generations. The system demonstrates early engineering thinking, where empirical observation and repeated testing guided the development of increasingly effective tools. Group hunting with the Atlatl introduced a new social dimension. Multiple hunters could coordinate to drive prey toward strategic locations, cover multiple angles, and execute ambushes with precision. Success depended not only on individual skill but also on communication, timing, and the collective understanding of terrain and prey behavior. This cooperative dynamic reinforced social cohesion and the transmission of specialized knowledge. The Atlatl became a medium through which technical expertise, cultural norms, and survival strategies were shared, creating a system in which technological mastery, social learning, and cultural continuity were deeply intertwined. Environmental awareness was critical to the Atlatl's effective use. Hunters needed to interpret the landscape, anticipate animal movement, and adjust throws for wind, slope, and obstacles. Hills, ridges, forests, and watercourses were leveraged to maximize range, concealment, and advantage. The weapon extended the human capacity to manipulate the environment, integrating knowledge of geography and ecology into practical action. Hunters were not passive participants in the natural world, they became active agents, capable of shaping outcomes with foresight and precision. This interaction reflects an early form of environmental intelligence, a sophisticated understanding of how behavior, technology, and landscape intersect. The Atlatl also shaped human cognition by fostering abstract thinking and planning. A successful throw required anticipating the path of the dart, predicting prey movement, and integrating environmental variables, all in real time. Hunters developed a mental model of cause and effect, applying lessons learned from previous hunts to inform future actions. The weapon thus functioned as a cognitive tool, extending the hunter's ability to process complex information and make decisions under uncertainty. This form of problem-solving laid the groundwork for later technological innovations, illustrating that intelligence is expressed not solely in abstract thought but in practical, embodied engagement with the world. Crafting an Atlatl required skill, patience, and foresight. Selection of suitable wood, bone, or antler involved careful assessment of flexibility, strength, and durability. Handles were shaped to fit the hand, notches aligned precisely to release the dart smoothly, and some weapons incorporated weights or counterbalances for stability. Decoration, from engravings to symbolic markings, reflected cultural identity, personal achievement, or ritual significance. The act of crafting was thus both practical and expressive, linking utility with social and symbolic meaning. Each Atlatl was a synthesis of technical knowledge, aesthetic sensibility, and cultural transmission, a tangible record of human ingenuity and experience. Darts themselves were designed to optimize performance with the Atlatl. Length, weight, and flexibility were carefully balanced to store and release energy efficiently, while tips were shaped to maximize lethality. Hunters observed the results of each throw, experimenting with subtle adjustments in design or technique to improve accuracy and impact. This iterative process demonstrates a proto-scientific approach: hypothesis, experiment, observation, and refinement. Over generations, these incremental improvements led to increasingly sophisticated weapons, reflecting cumulative knowledge and the capacity for systematic problem-solving in prehistoric societies. The physiological implications of regular Atlatl use were significant. Repeated throwing motion strengthened the shoulder, arm, and torso muscles, while enhancing coordination, timing, and proprioception. Skeletal adaptations suggest that habitual use shaped bone structure and joint mobility to optimize performance. This interaction between tool use and bodily adaptation illustrates the feedback loop between technology, physical development, and skill acquisition. Humans were shaping themselves as much as they were shaping their tools, demonstrating an intimate connection between material culture and biological evolution. Emotion and experience were inseparable from Atlatl mastery. The thrill of a successful strike, the satisfaction of precise control, and the confidence gained from extended reach all contributed to the psychological resonance of the weapon. Hunters learned patience, focus, and resilience, negotiating danger with intelligence rather than brute force. Each throw became an exercise in judgment, timing, and observation, cultivating cognitive and emotional skills that extended far beyond the hunt. The Atlatl thus functioned as both a practical instrument and a medium for personal development, training body, mind, and perception simultaneously. The ecological impact of the Atlatl was equally profound. By increasing hunting efficiency, humans influenced prey populations, herd behaviors, and migration patterns. Predator-prey dynamics were subtly altered, and human activity began to exert selective pressure on species and ecosystems. The weapon enabled humans to assert influence over their environment, becoming agents of ecological change. This early form of technological agency demonstrates that even simple tools can have far-reaching consequences, shaping landscapes, species, and the balance of life within ecosystems. Culturally, the Atlatl facilitated the transmission of knowledge and the reinforcement of social hierarchies. Mastery conferred status, and elders instructed younger members in both construction and technique. Stories, rituals, and symbolic meanings were attached to the weapon, embedding it within a framework of identity, tradition, and communal memory. It was both a functional tool and a repository of culture, linking technological skill with social cohesion and the continuity of experience across generations. The Atlatl exemplifies humanity's first deliberate extension of influence over the physical world. It embodies the principles of leverage, energy transfer, and strategic planning, demonstrating that intelligence is as much practical as it is abstract. Its invention transformed hunting from reactive survival to calculated engagement, reshaping human cognition, social organization, and environmental interaction. The weapon stands as a testament to the ingenuity, foresight, and adaptability that define our species, marking a pivotal moment when humans learned to project power beyond their own bodies and to manipulate the natural world with precision, creativity, and strategy. Through the Atlatl, humans achieved a remarkable synthesis of skill, observation, and insight. It transformed the act of hunting into a complex interplay of body, mind, and environment. It fostered social learning, reinforced cultural identity, and catalyzed both cognitive and physical evolution. Its influence extended beyond immediate survival, shaping ecological systems, human physiology, and the trajectory of technological development. The Atlatl is a symbol of the first leap in human mastery over the environment, a moment when ingenuity allowed our ancestors to transcend physical limitations, assert agency, and lay the foundation for the innovations and cultural achievements that would define humanity for millennia to come. The Atlatl, in many ways, symbolizes humanity's ability to transcend its inherent limitations and to engage the world through ingenuity. In its simplicity, it encapsulates a profound leap in how humans related to their environment, how they interacted with dangerous prey, and how they began to assert control over forces much larger than themselves. While primitive in appearance, the Atlatl was a highly sophisticated tool that carried with it vast implications for human survival, social structure, and cognitive development. It was not just a weapon, it was a pivot in the evolutionary trajectory of humanity, marking the transition from raw physicality to calculated strategy, from passive existence to active manipulation of nature. Before the advent of the Atlatl, humans faced a daunting reality in which their survival largely depended on direct physical confrontation with wild animals. Large herbivores, such as mammoths, bison, and horses, roamed vast expanses of the landscape. These animals were not just sources of sustenance, they were formidable forces of nature, armed with tusks, hooves, and instincts finely tuned to evade or defend against predators. For early humans, hunting these creatures was an exercise in vulnerability. Close-quarters hunting was fraught with risk. Even a single misstep could mean death. The lack of a ranged weapon limited human engagement with prey, forcing them to rely on cooperative strategies and sheer persistence, often at great personal cost. The introduction of the Atlatl fundamentally changed this equation. By enabling humans to project force over greater distances, it reduced the immediate danger inherent in a hunt. The extension of the arm through the use of a lever created an added layer of safety and gave hunters the ability to engage prey from a relatively secure distance. Suddenly, the hunter could strike from behind cover or from a concealed position, reducing the need to approach within dangerous striking range of the animal. The simplicity of the design belied its ingenuity. By turning a hunter's body into a lever, the Atlatl acted as an amplifier for human force. A slight motion of the arm was enough to hurl a dart with enough speed and power to penetrate thick hides and deliver a lethal blow. This leap in effectiveness did more than just improve the odds of a successful hunt, it revolutionized the way humans thought about hunting. No longer did the hunter have to rely purely on brute strength and speed. Instead, they could now incorporate skill, timing, and strategy into the hunt. The Atlatl introduced a new level of precision and control. It was no longer about the hunt being a desperate struggle against nature, it was about understanding the prey's behavior, choosing the right moment to strike, and executing that strike with accuracy. The shift from close combat to ranged weaponry brought about a fundamental change in how humans interacted with the natural world. The idea of indirect engagement, striking from a distance, meant that survival no longer depended solely on physical confrontation. This shift likely required the development of new cognitive skills as well. The use of the Atlatl demanded a higher degree of planning, foresight, and spatial reasoning. In the heat of the hunt, the human mind had to process variables like distance, trajectory, and the movement of both prey and predator. One could no longer simply act on instinct, the mind had to anticipate the path of the dart, account for wind or terrain, and adjust according to the shifting movements of the animal. The ability to make split-second decisions about when and where to strike, and to gauge the effectiveness of each throw, would have fostered a deeper awareness of cause and effect. This engagement with the physical world on a more calculated level likely spurred the development of early cognitive faculties, influencing how early humans approached not only hunting but a broad range of daily activities. In addition to its physical and cognitive benefits, the Atlatl transformed the social fabric of early human communities. As with any new technology, the mastery of the Atlatl became a valuable skill. Those who had the ability to wield it effectively gained prestige and influence within their tribes. They became the leaders of hunts, the ones who ensured the survival of the group by bringing down large prey with greater efficiency. But the Atlatl was not just about individual prowess. It was a tool that required coordination, communication, and cooperation. Group hunting became more sophisticated with the advent of the Atlatl. Hunters could coordinate their efforts more effectively, driving prey into kill zones or ambush points where the ranged strikes of multiple Atlatl users could bring down larger animals. The efficiency of the Atlatl made hunting a more predictable activity. By decreasing the risk to individual hunters and allowing for greater success in hunting larger animals, it increased the availability of food for communities. This would have had profound social implications. With more food came the potential for population growth, and with that came the need for more organized social structures. The development of specialized knowledge, such as the crafting and maintenance of the Atlatl, likely led to the emergence of social roles. Those who were skilled in creating or repairing these tools could have gained social standing within their groups, further reinforcing the value of the Atlatl not just as a hunting tool but as a cultural artifact. As these tools were passed down from generation to generation, they became repositories of cultural knowledge, representing not only survival but also tradition, identity, and continuity. The technological advances that the Atlatl enabled also sparked further innovation. It opened the door to new ways of interacting with the environment. Now that humans could hunt more effectively, they could more easily manage the resources of the land. The increase in available food would have given early human groups the luxury of being able to settle in one place for longer periods, allowing for the development of more complex societies and long-term planning. With the Atlatl, humans were not just taking what the land gave them, they were now in a position to influence the landscape itself. In terms of the broader evolutionary trajectory, the Atlatl's introduction represented a crucial shift in how humans adapted to their environment. Whereas earlier hominids had been at the mercy of nature's larger predators, the Atlatl gave them a powerful new tool to assert dominance over the environment. The increased ability to hunt and manage prey populations would have had cascading effects on the ecosystem. Megafauna, already dwindling under the pressure of climate change, now faced an additional predator in the form of humans. As human hunting increased in efficiency, it further shaped the trajectory of these species, contributing to the extinction of many large animals that could not adapt quickly enough. In this way, the Atlatl represents not just a tool of survival but also an early form of ecological manipulation. The physical characteristics of the Atlatl, combined with its versatility, allowed it to be adapted for various environments and conditions. In open plains, where long-range visibility was available, the Atlatl could be used for long-distance hunting. In dense forests or near water sources, where stealth and surprise were paramount, hunters could use the Atlatl to remain hidden while striking from a distance. This adaptability ensured that the Atlatl could serve humans in a wide range of habitats, from the cold steppes to temperate woodlands. The weapon's ability to function in different environments also reinforced the idea of humans as adaptable and resourceful, capable of using their environment in a way that maximized their chances of survival. Even more importantly, the Atlatl became a symbol of human agency. It represented the human capacity to control and manipulate the world beyond immediate physical presence. Early humans, through the use of the Atlatl, were able to transform a once perilous and life-threatening endeavor into a calculated and strategic activity. The weapon allowed them to control the pace of the hunt, regulate risk, and increase their odds of success, all with a device that required deep understanding, patience, and skill. The relationship between humans and the Atlatl was not just one of necessity or survival, it was one of engagement. The act of hunting with the Atlatl required more than just physical effort, it required mental engagement, a deep connection between hunter and prey. Through this interaction, the Atlatl facilitated the development of a broader understanding of cause and effect, strategy, and teamwork. It reinforced the importance of collective effort and the passing of knowledge through generations. The Atlatl was not simply a tool for survival, it was a force that shaped the way humans thought about themselves and their place in the world. The invention of the Atlatl marks one of humanity's first deliberate steps toward mastering the forces of nature. It represents the moment when humans took control of their environment not through brute force, but through innovation, intelligence, and creativity. It was a leap not just in technological capability but in the evolution of human cognition, social structure, and cultural continuity. The Atlatl allowed early humans to project power into the world, transforming their relationship with their surroundings and the creatures that inhabited it. Through this tool, humanity took its first steps toward the broader narrative of mastery and progress, setting the stage for the innovations that would follow in the millennia to come. The Atlatl was not merely a tool for hunting, it was a profound shift in the human relationship with nature. The invention of this simple yet transformative device marked a key moment in the evolutionary story of humankind. It was the first technology that allowed humans to project their strength beyond their physical limitations. Through a simple lever, the Atlatl granted early humans the ability to hunt from a distance, reducing risk and improving efficiency. This transformation was not just physical, but mental and social as well, paving the way for profound shifts in how humans interacted with their environment and each other. Before the Atlatl, early humans had only their bodies and basic tools to rely on when hunting. The act of hunting large game involved significant risk. Hunters had to approach prey at close range, risking their lives to strike with spears or sharpened sticks. The animals they hunted were not helpless prey, they were large, powerful creatures with instincts honed over millennia. Their size, speed, and strength made close combat a dangerous affair. While cooperation, persistence, and intelligence helped early humans to hunt and survive, the risks were always high. For example, hunting a mammoth or a bison in the open would often require a group of people working together, attempting to surround and corral the animal before it could charge or escape. It was a life-or-death gamble, and failure was often a costly, if not fatal, experience. The introduction of the Atlatl marked a dramatic change. It allowed humans to hunt without having to engage in close, dangerous confrontations. By extending the reach of a human arm and using a mechanical advantage to project force, the Atlatl enabled the hunter to strike from a greater distance. The force generated by the Atlatl's leverage made it possible to throw a dart with enough speed and power to pierce thick hides and deliver a lethal blow. The result was a more efficient, safer method of hunting. What's more, it allowed hunters to practice their craft with greater precision. Now, the act of hunting became less about brute strength and more about skill, coordination, and planning. It became an art as much as it was a necessity. This leap in hunting technology was, in essence, the first of many steps toward the full mastery of the physical world. With the Atlatl, humans no longer had to rely solely on their bodies to interact with nature. They could now use their intelligence to control the outcome of a hunt from a distance. It was as if humans had begun to conquer nature by thinking beyond their immediate surroundings, by using ingenuity to compensate for their physical weaknesses. This marks a turning point in human evolution, a moment when the body became secondary to the mind in the quest for survival. The Atlatl gave humans a newfound agency over the world, allowing them to engage with their environment in ways they had never before been able to do. This shift had profound implications for human cognition. While the physical mechanics of throwing a spear or a dart with the Atlatl may seem straightforward, it required a much more advanced mental process than simply throwing an object. The hunter had to be able to judge distance, trajectory, wind speed, and the movement of the prey, all in a fraction of a second. Every successful hunt depended on this instant calculation. It required the hunter to engage in an abstract kind of thinking, visualizing the potential outcome of the throw and considering a wide range of variables before committing to the action. This kind of forward thinking was not only essential for success in hunting, but it also signified the beginning of the kind of strategic, deliberate thought that would become central to human advancement. It was a skill that could be applied to all aspects of life, from navigating terrain to organizing social structures, and even to envisioning future goals. As humans learned to use the Atlatl with increasing proficiency, the tool became more than just a weapon, it became a symbol of human resourcefulness and intelligence. It embodied the essence of human innovation, taking an existing set of circumstances and using creativity to improve upon them. The Atlatl was a response to the challenge of survival, but it was also a manifestation of human willpower, intellect, and the desire to thrive. The tool was not simply an object to be used, it was an extension of the human mind, a way for early humans to shape their world according to their needs and desires. The development of the Atlatl also led to significant changes in social dynamics. With the advent of this more efficient way to hunt, the need for raw strength and individual bravery diminished somewhat, while skill and coordination became more important. The Atlatl allowed for greater precision and efficiency in hunting, which in turn facilitated group cooperation. In a sense, the use of the Atlatl brought humans closer together. Group hunts became more coordinated, and the division of labor and knowledge sharing became critical for the success of a hunt. Individuals who mastered the Atlatl became leaders, passing on their knowledge and techniques to younger generations. The transmission of these skills was essential for the survival of the group. The act of hunting, which had once been a risky and solo endeavor, now became a shared cultural experience, passed down through generations and deeply integrated into the fabric of early human society. The Atlatl also had a significant impact on the way humans interacted with their environment. In addition to hunting, it required the hunter to engage with the landscape on a much deeper level. The hunter had to consider the terrain, the position of the wind, the movement of animals, and the availability of resources. The Atlatl expanded the range of animals humans could hunt and allowed them to take advantage of new strategies that weren't possible with previous methods. Humans could now adapt to different environments, whether that meant hunting in open plains, forests, or near bodies of water. The tool enabled them to become more versatile and adaptable in their ways of interacting with nature. Over time, the Atlatl led to the development of new types of social structures and cultural practices. It facilitated the rise of specialized roles within human societies. People who were skilled in crafting Atlatls became important members of the community, as their knowledge and expertise contributed to the success of hunts and the survival of the group. The act of making an Atlatl was not just a functional task, it was a creative endeavor, one that reflected the human desire to make tools that were not only effective but also meaningful. The ornamentation and decoration on Atlatl suggest that they were not merely utilitarian objects but were imbued with cultural significance. The craftsmanship involved in making an Atlatl could serve as a form of artistic expression and personal identity. Furthermore, the social organization that the Atlatl helped to foster was not limited to hunting alone. The efficiency it brought to the hunt likely led to more stable food sources, allowing communities to focus on other aspects of life. With more predictable and regular access to food, humans could begin to experiment with other forms of social organization. Permanent settlements, trade, and the development of other forms of technology followed in the wake of the new stability the Atlatl provided. Humans were no longer bound by the immediate constraints of survival, and this opened up new avenues for cultural and technological growth. The Atlatl also acted as a sort of cognitive bridge, allowing humans to project their physical capabilities beyond their immediate reach. It allowed them to strike out at prey from a distance and, in doing so, freed them from the need to confront danger face to face. In this sense, the Atlatl was one of the first steps in humanity's ability to shape the world around them. It marked the beginning of a series of technological advancements that would later give rise to agriculture, architecture, and eventually the modern world. Each new invention built upon the foundation of creativity and problem-solving that began with the Atlatl. Even though the Atlatl was eventually replaced by more advanced technologies, its legacy remains profound. The very principles of leverage, motion, and force that it embodied continue to inform the tools we use today. The Atlatl was humanity's first real foray into understanding the mechanics of the world around them, and it opened the door for more sophisticated inventions that would follow in the millennia to come. What began as a simple tool for survival became the cornerstone of human ingenuity, changing not just the way humans hunted, but the way they viewed their place in the natural world. In the end, the Atlatl represents more than just an evolutionary step in human technology. It is a symbol of human resilience, creativity, and adaptability. It was a breakthrough that allowed humans to overcome the limitations of their physical bodies and to take control of their environment in a new and profound way. The Atlatl was not just about survival, it was about understanding, mastery, and the ability to shape the world according to human needs and desires. It stands as one of the first tangible expressions of human ingenuity, a reminder that the tools we create are extensions of ourselves, our minds, and our aspirations. The Atlatl is a fascinating testament to human ingenuity, a tool that represents not just a technical advancement, but a profound shift in how early humans understood and engaged with their environment. The leap it represented in hunting technology was not simply about increasing efficiency, it fundamentally altered the relationship between humans and nature. Before the Atlatl, hunting large game was a perilous, high-risk endeavor. Humans had to rely on their physical strength, speed, and the cooperation of their social group to overcome prey that was often much larger and stronger. The arrival of the Atlatl allowed humans to strike from a distance, reducing the risks inherent in these hunts. In many ways, it was the beginning of a new era, an era where humans no longer had to be physically close to their prey to kill it, but could engage with nature in a more calculated, controlled manner. The use of the Atlatl reflects the ongoing process of human adaptation. It is a tool born from the need to survive in a world that was filled with dangers. But unlike previous tools, which primarily extended the strength or sharpness of the human body, the Atlatl extended the human mind. It was the first tool that allowed humans to project their will over a greater distance, leveraging their body's motion to unleash force. In doing so, it created an entirely new way of approaching the hunt. No longer did humans have to engage in close-range, high-risk interactions with prey, they could now strike with precision and skill, at a safe distance, taking control over their surroundings in a way that had previously been impossible. This ability to strike from a distance opened up new hunting strategies. Early humans had long been dependent on the collective strength of their group, working together to trap, ambush, or wear down prey through persistence. But with the Atlatl, the equation changed. A single individual could now, with the right technique, bring down prey that would have required several people to hunt before. The Atlatl allowed for greater precision, enabling a hunter to strike accurately at vital areas such as the heart or lungs. By focusing on specific vulnerabilities, the Atlatl reduced the need for brute force and allowed for a more strategic approach to hunting. In many ways, the advent of the Atlatl mirrored a transition from a survival-oriented mindset to a more strategic and thoughtful one. With the Atlatl, hunting was no longer just a test of physical endurance and bravery. It required planning, skill, and attention to detail. The hunter now had to factor in distance, angle, wind, the movement of the prey, and the terrain. A successful hunt was no longer the result of a raw physical confrontation, it became a dance of timing and calculation. The Atlatl made it possible to engage with animals in a more detached, intellectual way, creating space for thought and reflection during the hunt. It was no longer simply about surviving the encounter, but about mastering it. The ability to master the Atlatl required more than just learning how to throw a dart with force. The process of creating the Atlatl itself required skill, knowledge, and craftsmanship. The materials needed for the Atlatl, often wood or bone, had to be carefully selected, shaped, and balanced to ensure both durability and effectiveness. Some Atlatls were ornately decorated, reflecting not just the skill of the maker, but also the cultural significance attached to the weapon. The creation of the Atlatl was a process that involved not only practical knowledge but also artistic expression, combining form and function in a way that few other tools could. Each Atlatl had its own subtle variations. Different regions, different environments, and different prey demanded different kinds of Atlatls. Some were built for maximum range, others for close, swift strikes. The diversity of design speaks to the adaptability and creativity of early humans. It wasn't just about making a tool that worked, it was about making a tool that worked in a particular way for a particular situation. The Atlatl, in many ways, allowed early humans to tailor their approach to the world around them, customizing their tools and methods to the specific challenges they faced. The influence of the Atlatl extended far beyond the individual. In early human societies, hunting was not just an activity, it was a communal effort that involved cooperation, coordination, and the passing down of knowledge. The Atlatl became a symbol of these communal values. Skilled hunters who were adept at using the Atlatl were likely respected members of their tribes, their expertise passed down to younger generations. But the knowledge of the Atlatl was not only passed through direct instruction. It was embedded within the fabric of society, woven into rituals, storytelling, and shared cultural practices. The Atlatl, in this sense, was more than just a tool, it was a cultural artifact, one that carried the stories, traditions, and wisdom of past generations. As humans mastered the Atlatl, they began to see their environment in a new light. Hunting was no longer just about survival, it was an act of manipulation, of asserting influence over the world. Humans began to control the rhythms of nature, using their tools to affect animal behavior, manage food sources, and even alter ecosystems. The Atlatl enabled humans to hunt more efficiently, which led to an increase in available food. This increased abundance, in turn, allowed for population growth, the development of permanent settlements, and the emergence of more complex social structures. The Atlatl didn't just change the way people hunted, it changed the very structure of early human society. The use of the Atlatl also had a direct impact on human evolution. The physical act of throwing a dart with an Atlatl required a certain degree of upper body strength, coordination, and muscle memory. The constant use of these muscles, coupled with the precise control required to throw effectively, would have led to specific physical adaptations. Just as tools such as the spear shaped the way early humans used their bodies, so too did the Atlatl create its own demands. The act of throwing with an Atlatl would have strengthened the shoulder, arms, and torso, leading to physical adaptations that reflected the growing importance of tool use in human survival. This new relationship between humans and their tools also speaks to a broader philosophical shift. The Atlatl allowed humans to transform their environment without having to engage directly with it. By leveraging their physical abilities through the Atlatl, they were able to manipulate the natural world in ways that had not been possible before. This ability to control nature without direct confrontation was the beginning of a broader trend in human history, one that would ultimately lead to the technological advances that allowed humans to shape the world in ways previously unimaginable. But while the Atlatl was a leap forward, it also represented the culmination of a long process of adaptation. Its development was not a sudden invention but the result of years, if not millennia, of trial and error. Early humans were keen observers of the world around them. They understood the forces of nature, the behavior of animals, and the mechanics of movement long before they had the words to describe them. The Atlatl was the product of this knowledge, a tool that embodied both the human desire for survival and the intellectual leap to understanding the principles of force and motion. As human societies developed, the Atlatl remained a key tool in many cultures. Its use persisted for thousands of years, evolving and adapting to new environments, new challenges, and new ways of living. Even as more advanced technologies emerged, the Atlatl remained a potent symbol of early human creativity. It was a reminder of a time when humanity's ingenuity was enough to overcome the greatest challenges of survival. In the context of today's world, the Atlatl may seem like a relic of a primitive past, but its significance is timeless. It serves as a reminder of what humans are capable of when they are forced to adapt to a world that is both hostile and beautiful. The Atlatl was a tool that gave humans an edge in the struggle for survival, but it was also a tool that allowed them to engage with the world in a new and profound way. It represented a shift from physical confrontation to intellectual engagement, from survival to strategy. Through the Atlatl, early humans not only changed the way they hunted, they changed the way they thought about their relationship with the natural world, setting the stage for the cultural and technological advancements that would follow. The Atlatl, an ancient weapon designed to throw spears or darts with greater force and accuracy, was not just a breakthrough in hunting technology, it represented an evolution in human thought, society, and relationship with the natural world. Long before the Atlatl, humans were already resourceful hunters, using spears, traps, and their innate survival instincts to secure food. But even the most ingenious early tools had their limitations. Humans had to get close to their prey to strike, which meant risking dangerous encounters with large animals. The advent of the Atlatl was a leap forward, a moment when humans extended their physical capabilities and, in doing so, transformed their approach to hunting. It was a tool that provided distance, precision, and safety, creating a new dynamic between hunter and prey, and ultimately reshaping human survival strategies. Before the invention of the Atlatl, close-range hunting required a level of bravery and physical strength that limited the success of such endeavors. In the wild, where encounters with formidable animals like mammoths or bison could end in death, survival depended heavily on strength, speed, and group cooperation. Early humans had already learned to hunt in packs, using teamwork to isolate and kill prey. The physicality of hunting was not just about the hunter's strength but their ability to withstand the violent forces of nature. It required endurance and skill, and even with all the right tools, there was always an element of chance involved. The Atlatl, however, provided a way to transcend the physical limitations of humans in ways that had previously been unimaginable. It was more than a simple weapon, it was a device that allowed the hunter to engage with the environment at a distance. Using a lever to extend the reach of the arm, the Atlatl dramatically increased the range and speed of a thrown spear or dart. By leveraging the principles of physics, the tool used mechanical advantage to convert the hunter's physical motion into a greater impact force, allowing for more powerful and accurate strikes from farther away. This shift from close-quarters combat to a weapon that could project force from a distance was not just an advancement in hunting, it was an entirely new way of relating to the animals that humans relied on for survival. In addition to providing safety, the Atlatl allowed humans to hunt with greater precision. Unlike early hunting tools, which required the hunter to get close enough to their prey to thrust or strike, the Atlatl enabled the hunter to hit vital targets with great accuracy from a distance. This precision opened up a new world of strategies for hunters. With the right training and skill, a single individual could take down large prey, making hunting more efficient and less reliant on large groups of people. The Atlatl essentially allowed hunters to control their environment in a way that had never been possible before, turning the hunt into a calculated and strategic activity rather than a dangerous test of strength and endurance. The weapon's impact extended beyond the individual hunter. The Atlatl redefined the dynamics of group hunting as well. Previously, successful hunts often required elaborate coordination between multiple hunters. In some cases, hunters had to rely on ambush tactics, driving animals into confined spaces or toward waiting traps. With the Atlatl, the dynamics of group hunting shifted. Now, a small number of hunters, even a single skilled one, could hunt from a distance with greater efficacy. This change allowed for a broader range of hunting tactics and strategies. It wasn't just about taking down prey, it was about managing risk, precision, and the effective use of human ingenuity. Group hunts still occurred, but they no longer required as much manpower to be successful. The social organization of hunting groups would evolve, with specialized roles emerging. Those who mastered the Atlatl became leaders within their communities, experts whose knowledge of the weapon was crucial for survival. The Atlatl also redefined the concept of risk in hunting. With this tool, humans were no longer at the mercy of close-range encounters with powerful animals. The distance provided by the Atlatl reduced the chances of injury and death in the hunt, making hunting a less perilous activity. However, this shift also demanded a new form of responsibility. While the Atlatl increased safety, it also required the hunter to have a much deeper understanding of their environment and prey. Hunters now had to learn not just about the animals they hunted, but also about the land, the wind, the weather, and the trajectory of their throws. The art of hunting with an Atlatl was no longer only about physical prowess, it was about knowledge, timing, and the careful observation of patterns in nature. Success in the hunt required not just strength, but intellect and foresight. This new cognitive demand had broader implications. Early humans, already known for their capacity for problem-solving and innovation, now had to think in more abstract terms. They needed to visualize and anticipate the path of their thrown spear, accounting for distance, wind resistance, and the movement of their prey. This kind of forward thinking was new and required a sophisticated understanding of cause and effect. It wasn't just about reacting to the present moment, but about anticipating the future and adjusting behavior accordingly. In this sense, the Atlatl may have played a role in developing the kinds of strategic thinking that would later become central to human social organization and technological advancement. The Atlatl also facilitated the development of a deeper connection between humans and the animals they hunted. In a way, the tool brought a sense of detachment to the act of hunting. Instead of a violent confrontation at close range, where the human body was directly engaged with the prey, the Atlatl allowed for a more calculated and cerebral approach. The hunter now had to consider the prey's movement, the environment, and the potential outcomes of each throw. There was a mental distance between the hunter and the hunted, which might have made the experience of the hunt itself more reflective. The physical distance allowed by the Atlatl also fostered a sense of mastery over the natural world. The hunter could now project their will onto the landscape from afar, asserting control without being exposed to the same immediate danger. This shift in interaction had far-reaching consequences. By reducing the danger of hunting, the Atlatl enabled human societies to grow in ways they had not been able to before. Larger, more stable populations could be supported with the increased efficiency of hunting. With more food came more resources for other activities, like toolmaking, art, and social development. The safety provided by the Atlatl allowed humans to spend more time focusing on these pursuits, leading to the creation of more complex social structures, new forms of technology, and a broader understanding of the world. The invention of the Atlatl, in a sense, created a new cultural ecosystem. Hunting, now less about physical endurance and more about skill and strategy, became a central part of early human life in ways that transcended its practical use. It was a way of learning about the world, of mastering not just the animals, but also the environment in which humans lived. The Atlatl was not only a tool for survival, it was a tool for teaching and learning. It was used not just in the hunt, but also in rituals, stories, and cultural practices. It became a symbol of human ingenuity, a representation of the ability to think beyond immediate survival needs and to shape the environment to one's advantage. In addition to its cultural significance, the Atlatl also led to the development of increasingly sophisticated forms of technology. As humans honed their skills with the Atlatl, they began to develop new ways of using it, new types of darts, different materials for crafting, and more efficient methods of throwing. The Atlatl's role in early human development was not limited to its use in the hunt, it became part of a broader culture of innovation and improvement. The weapon was constantly refined, adjusted, and improved upon, demonstrating the human tendency to build upon existing technologies to create even more effective tools. The Atlatl's impact extended beyond the immediate survival benefits it provided. It redefined the way humans saw themselves and their place in the world. The tool allowed early humans to extend their capabilities, not just physically, but cognitively as well. It provided them with a means to engage with the environment in a way that was less about direct confrontation and more about strategy, observation, and control. Through the Atlatl, humans demonstrated their capacity to think critically, adapt, and master their surroundings. It was a symbol of both human resilience and human creativity, a tool that marked the transition from survival to mastery. The Atlatl was not just a technological advancement, it was a key to unlocking the potential of the human mind. By giving humans the ability to project force from a distance, it allowed them to interact with their world in a new and profound way. It reflected the growing complexity of human thought and the increasing ability to manipulate the environment for personal and group survival. The Atlatl, in all its simplicity, was a key moment in human evolution, one that signaled the beginning of a long journey of technological and cultural development that would shape the course of history.